OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
Yes, indeed. Welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM with myself, Shane Hannon, and OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate at Movember.com. The esteemed broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, Shane. I had to remember, was it Tuesday or Monday there?
Yeah.
The bank holiday throws you, doesn't it?
It does. And it was one of those things last night where I was sitting at home and Halloween, piss and rain, clocks had gone back, so it was darker in the evenings, and you're thinking, this is... we get comments on YouTube sometimes where, would the lads ever stop using the word grim? I'm going to use it one more time, so apologies. It was a grim Monday evening last night, wasn't it? You know
the poem Another September by Thomas Kinsella, where he speaks about this kind of I guess the autumn coming in, and he speaks in Mirror in February about getting old. There's something about November though, that November's on the way, and last night coming across to Shannon from Galway after being at the Galway United match, had a night in Galway, and then coming across to Shannon, biblical rain. It was tough. And then last night I'd ordered a pizza, typical, giving up
Bank Holiday Monday,
Bank Holiday Monday, giving up on making food or whatever. So I ordered the pizza. Well, it was sluggish enough to arrive. Eventually got a knock on the door anyway. So I was just about to make my excuse for I'm sorry, I don't have any change to drop you a tip. And there was a young lad looking for trick-or-treat. So that completely threw me. So I had to stumble around to find him a Magnum.
A Magnum?
Yeah, the best I could come up with.
Johnny, you can't be giving a trick-or-treater a Magnum.
Like nothing else.
The whole purpose is take it home, see what you've got, take out the refresher sweets and everything else, and the bars and the crisps.
It did remind me of when...
Come home with a melted Magnum in his hands.
It did remind me when during Lent I went off chocolate when I was a kid, and I decided that I'd hoard all the chocolate I would have bought if I'd actually eaten it. So I had a big box, like a letter box, and there was a hole to put in the chocolate in.
Yeah.
There's an analogy from this as well, if you bear with me. So by the end I had 117 bars of chocolate, right? Now, clearly I didn't eat 3 bars of chocolate on average day, but I got into the idea of, I love the idea of adding to my collection. By the end, I had no interest in eating the chocolate whatsoever. I just wanted to have more. And it's kind of like, if you have a lot of money, spend it. Don't be like that idea of, I just want more money in my bank account. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And the chocolate was going mouldy at that stage, whatever about the Magnum.
Well, the Magnum was definitely gone mouldy. Would you have been a trick-or-treater as a kid in Galway?
No, we used to go out for the wren. Do you remember the...
Dad used to tell me about that. What was the wren?
The wren, the king of all birds. You might know the song The Boys of Barnasroyd from Kerry. They went hunting for the wren.
Is this a Galway thing or a Western thing?
I'd say it's more of a rural Ireland thing maybe, but that was on... I'm trying to think now what day of the year it was. St. Bridget's Day, and you'd go out and same thing, you'd kind of go out hunting for the wren. I don't think we actually hunted for the wren, we just tried to get money off our neighbours, and some of them were reciprocative. So.
You'd be looking for money. See,
yeah,
industrious out there in the West as well, you see. We would have done trick-or-treating and properly looking for... Now, if someone handed me a Magnum melting in my hands, I'd have probably told them where to go.
Well, I wasn't melting at that stage, but it is funny when you look at Instagram and now you see half of your feed is cross from New York to parts of Ireland, just kids dressed up for Halloween, and it is quite cool actually. I think it becomes like a keeping up with the Joneses for a lot of families, where they're like, well, if we're going to put it on Instagram, we might as well look quite well, and some of them are very impressive outfits.
Yeah, absolutely.
How was your weekend?
It was good. It was a good weekend. We had now I almost can't remember what I did now. I know my sister was playing the Cork Jazz Festival. Rachel was singing down there, so she had a busy one. I was out on Saturday night. I went out with a few friends. There was a little kind of storytelling trad session in Slieve Bay in Knockatallin on, and I went to on Saturday night, and that was fantastic. It was a kind of an old school not horror, but ghost stories and poems and spoken word and dancing. It was very, very traditional and very Irish. And
true to the spirit of Patrick Kavanagh.
Exactly, yeah.
We didn't have the weekend that JD had, though.
No, JD was at Charlton 4, Ipswich 4. Folks, I'll mention it quickly, because what a game at the Valley at the weekend. If you haven't seen it, go to Charlton Athletics Twitter page. They've posted the 10 minutes of injury time, so it's a spoiler, but 2-2 going into injury time. Charlton have been 2-0 down, came back to 2-2. Then Ipswich scored to make it 3-2. They scored again to make it 4-2, I think, after 94 minutes. There was 6 minutes added time, bear in mind. 96th minute, Charlton, the hosts, pull one back. And then 99th minute, because obviously minutes were added because of all the goals being scored in injury time, They get a header, just loops over the keeper, the Ipswich keeper, and 4-4. 4 goals in injury time. So John Duggan picked a great match to be at. You've scared me as well, Johnny, in reminding me that it's November.
It is the 1st of November.
Completely forgotten. So yeah, happy November to all of you out there. Listen, we've so much to get into on the show this morning, 7:35. Now in just a moment we'll get into the performance rankings. Plenty to dive into from across the weekend. We'll get into Adam Pope then around 7:55 as well. He's the BBC Radio Leeds journalist, and what a win it was for them at Anfield on Saturday evening at 8:10. Then Gareth Roberts will give us the Liverpool side of that story, and a very disappointing result for them given that they'd lost to Forest the week before. 2 very poor results in the league back to back after the Man City win before that. 8:30 the sports pages with Cal Malanian will of course pay tribute to Seamus Power. What a weekend he had, winning his second PGA Tour event at the weekend in Bermuda. Lovely weather it looked like as well, a bit windy on that last day as well, but Cal will bring us all the stories from this morning. 8:50 Alan Quinlan will dive back on all of the URC action involving the Irish provinces, including disappointing 1-point defeat for Munster at the weekend, albeit they were missing a lot of players. And we'll of course look ahead to the first test this weekend of the November internationals for Andy Farrell's Irish side against South Africa at the Viva Stadium. So that's coming up with Quinny. And then at 9:10 Luke O'Loughlin, the Westmeath senior footballer who helped Westmeath win a Talton Cup, and he's also after winning with the Downs with his club the first Westmeath senior club title in I think it was 17 years. He's got a remarkable personal story as well of personal struggles and addiction, the drugs and alcohol. So remarkable story, and Luke is going to be with us, and then we'll look back on the crappy quiz from 9:30 from Friday. Carnage as always, but first on this Tuesday morning, bank holiday Tuesday morning, we will look back on a few of the moments from the weekend with the performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Yes, indeed. We're going to start on these performance rankings with, in the red, Johnny, Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs fans might be tuning in and thinking this is very harsh. We won the game. We beat Bournemouth. But look, 2-0 down, bit of a sorry display. Came back to win 3-2. You'd wonder with Tottenham, because if you look at the Premier League standings, Johnny, you kind of have to be fairly positive for them because they're not doing that badly. But performance-wise, you'd be fairly concerned. Heung-min Son hasn't been the Heung-min Son that we've come to know and love. He's had some cracking games for Spurs this season, but it's consistency, I think. Matt Doherty's got a little bit of opportunities on the right back as well for Spurs, but they're having troubles. I don't know how I'd feel as a Spurs fan, because you got the win at the weekend, and yet scraping over the line is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think the scrap for the top, third and fourth down anyway in the Premier League is very, very hard to call, because Manchester United have been solid, and in general the rest just aren't. They're not developing much consistency, or they don't look very. You could talk about Chelsea as well, but they don't look like they're that cohesive. And Spurs have been poor really since give or take the Man United game. You mentioned Son, like he got those goals against Leicester, and that looked like it might turn his season. I don't know what the story with him is. He looks a shadow of the player that he was, and if Spurs are playing a counter-attacking game, but he's not really on his game, and Kane's not that fast, so they're probably caught between a rock and a hard place a bit at the moment. And as you say, they won, and their point tally's not bad, but they're not really playing well. I don't know about Doherty as well. I don't know, will he be able to get a regular place in that team? I think I'm not actually sure he's at the level to be a really good wing-back in the Premier League, pace-wise or in general at this stage. Maybe I'm wrong.
What I like about Doherty is and it's to his detriment sometimes as well, he's so honest in his post-match interviews. Like, he's one of these players that doesn't hold back. He says it as it is. If he thinks he's played shite, he'll say that. And he has been known to say that as well. So I think it's endeared him to a lot of Spurs fans, in that he's totally honest up front. When he's played bad, he'll say it. But I don't know. I'm starting to think that Antonio Conte does like him in recent weeks. I know Emerson was kind of out suspended for a bit, and that gave him a chance in the team. But there are areas across that pitch for Tottenham where you're like, they're just lacking. They're just not good enough.
They can't get much control in games either. That's my kind of reading of them. And it'll be interesting if I think they're playing Liverpool shortly. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, because
it's Sunday. That's going to be That's a huge game.
Yeah, I don't know if we have Liverpool in on the rankings there, if they're listed or not. But
they're there, just in the red with Tottenham.
Okay, so we can probably segue into that. I mean, if you looked at the recent results, Liverpool were expected to beat Leeds, but Leeds is their XP and their XG, if you believe in that stuff, they're actually playing better. And in fairness to Jesse March, he was saying like we should be getting more points than we're getting. I don't know, with Liverpool at the moment, Phil Egan was just pointing out as we were coming out here, the striking thing for him was that Jesse March was imploring his players to get the ball as quickly as possible at 1-1, rather than
back into play.
Leeds hadn't won at Anfield in 20 years, 21 years. Van Dijk hadn't lost a home league game. But I mean, I've watched a lot of Liverpool this season, and they're just not there at all. There's so many issues there. The goals that they gave away again, and Klopp. Is this going to be like the end? Is this the beginning of the end? Is this the Dortmund days all over again, where it just runs out of steam towards the end? Which will be sad, because it looks now like that all Liverpool will have to show in terms of winning the leagues was that league they won during the pandemic, which I think just wasn't quite the same as much as they won the league. It would be lovely for them to win it in front of their fans, and they're miles off at the moment. And his reflection that I think, Shane, that they're in a battle for the top 4 is true, and they just look tired. They just look like their legs aren't there.
Yeah, and the thing that would worry me if you're a Liverpool fan is there's this constant talk of the World Cup being a reset button. The words reset button have been used so often. This Liverpool team, they're like, oh look, let's get to the World Cup, we'll reset, but there's no guarantee that after the World Cup things will improve.
No.
And you look at how the thing that worries me most, and we'll of course bring this up with Gareth Roberts later on, is how slowly Liverpool are starting games. Like, so 12 Premier League games this season, they've conceded first in 8 of them.
Amazing.
And of those 8, 4 of them I think were within the first 16 minutes they'd conceded goals. So like, that's not a good sign.
Another stat which I was making this up on Saturday night, if you take out the Bournemouth game, Liverpool have a negative goal difference this season.
Yeah.
So that's incredible, really. Like the Bournemouth game, Bournemouth, funnily enough, did press the reset button after that and went on a great run. Liverpool, you just wonder, you know, Klopp, I think he spoke for like at length in one answer after the game, almost like a kind of a monologue in terms of like...
He looks pissed off, doesn't he, in the post-match press conference?
He spoke to Jan Fjortoft after, I think it was possibly the Arsenal game, and his body language, he just looks tired himself almost.
Quite snappy at reporters as well. Nothing wrong with that, of course, when you've lost a game and you're not
feeling the pressure. But I think as well, I feel that the demands on players, you know, you read the paper today and you're like, Jesus, there are more games tonight again. Like, it's constant. Liverpool, as much as they can take it a little bit easier against Napoli tonight, they're banging into action again. And to me, they're just tired. They look tired.
Couple of comments coming in. Danny Mac 1 says losing 1 hour of daylight should be in the red. I think we'll all agree.
It seemed a good idea yesterday morning, but you know, when you wake up,
when you get the extra hour in bed as well, you're like, oh, this is great. But then you realise
it's a bit of a mad one, isn't it?
It's bizarre.
Changing the clocks around, like it's almost like, you know, taking the roads in or something. Like, who'd be thinking of this?
We're getting some comment in from Bob Dwyer as well, our resident Spurs fan here on the OTB AM comments. Tottenham in the red, away from home, 2 down and came back to win 3-2. 19 corners, dominated possession and attempts on goal. Good second half, 3rd in the league, top of our Champions League group. Liverpool 9th in the league, lost to Leeds at home this weekend and higher than them in the performance rankings. If that was United coming back from 2-0 down against Bournemouth away from home, you'd be lauding it as great character. I think there is an argument that maybe, look, tonight will dictate a lot of what we're thinking of Spurs at the minute, because if they can't emerge from this Champions League group, and Marseille, like I was just looking, even the Marseille team, there's four players with Arsenal links.
Yeah.
So they were just like, you've got Alexis Sanchez, Sead Kolasinac, Matteo Guendouzi, and Nuno Tavares, who's actually on loan this season from the Emirates. So a lot of Marseille players there who would absolutely love nothing more than to knock Spurs out of the Champions League group.
Great atmosphere there tonight and all that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. They've no fans, and Conte's got his touchline ban. So he's
banned, of course. Yeah,
he's not going to be He's not going to be there either. So, look, Bob, I understand. It is. Look, even Shane C says harsh on Spurs lads. This time last year they were 7th and 3rd in the Europa Conference League group. If they were managed by someone other than Conte, people would think they are overachieving. Yeah. I would you'd still have to have concerns if you're a Spurs fan. It's not all there. Like the win at the weekend, look, away from home, got the 3 points, fair enough. It's the manner of the performances, I think. Maybe harsh. Maybe we could have put Liverpool
We could have put Chelsea in as well, to be fair.
Yeah, look, I'll apologise. I'll take the hit for that. Spurs should have been ahead of Liverpool there, I would say. But
Potter was a little bit harshly treated, I thought.
Potter?
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, with the boos from the Brighton fans. Bizarre. Let's get to the Amber, Johnny. So Munster.
Munster, yeah.
Look, they lost Ulster, but
I think there are definitely pros, and we'll talk to Alan Quinlan. They couldn't deal with Ulster's maul at all in the first half. It was just time and time again. I actually, when Quinny was on last week, I was asking what sort of response would the Munster fans give, in the sense that they seem to be in transition for quite some time here, but they've made a poorish start to the season. Jesus, it seemed to be an unbelievable atmosphere in the ground. Like, when Munster scored the try in the second half, the place gone absolutely wild, and obviously then missed the conversion to potentially win the game. And in fairness, like, Munster they kind of stretched the limit a bit. Ulster came in with a far from ideal prep as well, but ultimately they did win the game, and that's a question mark for Munster. But the very, very controversial yellow card incident as well, I'd like to talk about with Quinny. I thought that's the sort of stuff we need to stamp out of the game. But another defeat for Munster. Great weekend for the Irish provinces. Apart from Munster, Connacht were brilliant, played some lovely rugby and got a deserved win after falling, I think they were 12-0 down. But Munster, yeah, it was a defeat, albeit I think they'll definitely take some green shoots from it as well.
Just looking like the games Munster have lost, so when they lost to Cardiff, Dragons and Connacht, they were fairly brutal. The Leinster and Ulster defeats, you could maybe look at them and say, well, there were some good positive signs from those defeats, albeit they lost the games. Like, missing over 20 players for that Ulster game at the weekend as well. Yeah,
I think Roundtree as well afterwards, in fairness, was definitely extolling the positives of it. They made some really poor, really sloppy handling errors in the first half and could have won the game, but it'll be interesting to see when they play Leinster where they're at that stage, which is, I think that's about 4 games time.
Like, yeah, and that's the thing, you look at their remaining fixtures, I just don't know. They have to get these URC playoffs, next year's Champions Cup, if they can. 11 games left. Look at the fixtures they've left. They still have to play Leinster again. They've travelled Belfast, and a double header in South Africa, so that's 4 very difficult games out of those 11. The other 7 certainly aren't on a par in terms of difficulty, so they could look at targeting those 7 games and get maybe 5, 6, 7 wins in them. But yeah, it's been one of those seasons where Munster fans must be just tearing their hair out and thinking it's tough, because it's probably a period of transition, and look, it's Graham Roundtree trying to stamp his authority on the team as well, but sometimes it takes that in any sport. It takes a transition period where you have to accept that results aren't going to be all there, but slowly but surely the results will get better, you'd imagine.
I think as well, like, Leinster do this time again, but I think the necessity of having to bring in so many second string players is probably going to be a good thing for them, in some respects longer term. Give them game time and see what they're about. And I think some of Munster's play from in the second half was very, very good, and I'm sure Quinny will have some positives from it as well. But it was a really good game actually to watch.
A Shifty Lad says, think Johnny should be in the red with those rankings. I'll take the blame for it as well. You can throw us both in it.
Spurs wasn't really my thing, but I suppose Liverpool.
We're blaming the producers, are we?
Yeah, we're blaming the producers. We're going to throw them under the bus here. But you could have picked a few, yeah.
Someone comments Manx, as if we have Liverpool on the bottom, and that comment comes in from someone with the YouTube handle Feed the Mank Rats, so that'll teach you what they think about Manchester United, I'd imagine. I think we can all agree. But look, we'll take Tottenham off the bottom and we'll put the losing the hour of daylight onto the bottom, and I think we can all agree on that one. And we'll put Tottenham and Liverpool next to each other.
It's going to set in now, tonight when you're, it's dark at like 5:30 or
it's just one of those, when you see the traffic and the lights coming on, and it's not good. But,
it's definitely harder to get up in the morning. Like, when I'm OTB AM, like, I do this all year round, and when you get up in the summer and you're comfortably beaten by the dawn, it's beautiful to get up. This morning it's much harder. You're cycling down the canal, it's much colder, lights are on, and in some respects there's nobody home.
There is, yeah, and you're driving up the M1 like I was, with the other rat racers trying to get into the big city. Let's move on to the green, Johnny. I don't know what shade of green. I guess you can call it the yellowy green, just before the top one. But Shelbourne in the Women's National League, back-to-back titles for them after thrashing Wexford.
Yeah, it's funny just reading this morning. There's a real it's almost like shades of the loss, the brain drain of players to Australia in the Gaelic football side of things, where I just don't know the answers to this. Shells win back-to-back titles, but like, speaking to our producer Emma coming out, who's totally immersed in this, she says they've lost 7 players in the last 12 months, July to July, give or take, likes Chloe Mustaki, and this is going to happen again, in the sense of, so Saoirse Lunan, Sue and Mustaki all lost, and in the sense of you celebrate these victories and then you wonder, well, where are these players going to end up next season? Are very good players. And also then in one sense that might be good for the other clubs, that they can kind of catch up, but I just don't know what the answer is to monetise it for the clubs, because like League of Ireland clubs are extremely well run at the moment compared to the basket cases that they've long been, but and the coverage that the women's game is getting now is almost like, as a League of Ireland fan, you're almost envious of it from the men's game, because League of Ireland men's coverage leaves a lot to be desired at times, but it's getting great coverage, crowds are on the increase, standards are up, there's a brilliant end to the season with 3 teams in with a go. Shelbourne deserving to win, but I guess, Shane, the problem is Shell's problem started this morning, I guess, when they're now like, well, how do we try to lock these players down for next season? The likes of Abby Larkin, who's very young and promising as Brilliant player. She could become a poster girl for Irish football, but she'd probably again end up going to England, because that's just the reality of it. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
I know, and even when you look at even the names on the scoring sheet, so Shelbourne beat Wexford Youth 4-0 away from home in Ferrycarrig. Jessie Stapleton, Alex Kavanagh, Megan Smith Lynch, Abby Larkin. You are wondering, and myself and Ger spoke to Joey Malone, the assistant manager of Shells, on the show League of Ireland legend, of course, on the show last week, and he brought up this issue, and a lot of people responded to it. The idea that at least League of Ireland clubs can get, in the men's game, can get the financial compensation that numbs losing players, certainly to some degree. In the women's game, they just don't have that, because they're not at that level of professionalism where they can get the money to compensate them. So it's.
I don't know if they can turn it into even a sort of a nominal professional system, such that at least you do get that compensation. And like with Galway United taking over the women's aspect of the game in the city now, Shamrock Rovers coming in, I think that it's a really exciting time as well to to be involved in the League of Ireland in general. And I think for young girls who are aspiring to play now, there's an outlet there that just wasn't there anymore, and there's proper national recognition. So it's a wonderful time, but these problems aren't easily solved. Like, I've sympathy for Shells. I don't really know what they're going to do here. They're trying to get their house in order after Shells not that long ago were hemorrhaging money as a club, and they're trying to get their house in order. They're trying to build links with college. They're trying to build links in the community, and they're thriving as a club. But it's cup final to come up for the men as well, and obviously the cup final this weekend is going to be interesting as well. Athlone might try to get compensation, but it's a difficult one, Shane.
Yeah, and that's the downside of it. Of course, aside from that, congrats to Shelbourne on winning the Women's National League for the second year in a row, and as you said, Johnny, the way in which they did it, and 3 teams going into the last game, and Athlone Town as well doing their side of the bargain. They won 2-1. They needed to beat Bows, of course, and hope there was a draw in that Shells Wexford game. Scarlett Heron as well, I should give a shout out to, because she's a young girl who's from Monaghan, daughter of Colin and Audrey Heron there in Monaghan Town, and she scored the winner for Athlone Town in that game, and she's been kind of playing a lot of games in the Irish underage squads at the minute, and under 17, under 19 level, I think. So she's a top talent. So well done, Shelbourne, and hard luck to Wexford and Athlone, of course. You were just, while we're on the issue of League of Ireland, I know you were at the Galway match, for example, against Longford the weekend, but also unbelievably emotional scenes when Shamrock Rovers got their moment to lift the title, and Stephen Bradley's young son, lump in the throat stuff, Johnny, when you saw for anyone who is unaware of the story, that illness, leukemia that his son Josh has gone through, and to see him there lifting the trophy with the Shamrock Rovers players meant a lot to the club, and clearly meant a lot to Stephen and his family.
Yeah, like obviously Rovers could be top of the list here. They actually won the league, I think, since their last performance rankings, which was last Monday. But obviously it almost does feel like a while ago now. It's over a week since they were officially crowned champions. But since then, to be fair, they performed very well against Gent Thursday. I've been critical of them in the Conference League, but in fairness, I think they just found they've been a little bit stretched by the roster of games and injuries and losing the likes of Damian and so on and so forth. But they were very good. They could have won on Thursday night, and they got a very spirited draw and played Djurgården Thursday, and I think they might give a good account of themselves despite their problems on the road. It was a fait accompli in terms of the Derry City game Sunday. Unfortunately, neither had anything to play for in terms of winning the title. Derry still have to confirm second place, but Rovers particularly got the job done. But I don't know, I mean, like, he's this lovely story, Stephen Bradley, about Pico Lopez giving his jersey to young Josh and wearing it as if like a kind of like a Halloween costume, one of these like onesies type thing. And you can imagine the smile. And
that's what it's all about. Rovers
won the league partly because of the body of characters in that dressing room, and two of them who were I think both kind of were one side each of Josh as he came out to, you know, great reception in Tala, were Pico Lopez and Ronan Finn. And from my dealings with them and all I know about them, they're exactly what you'd want in a dressing room. Ronan Finn's had an amazing career. Absolutely. And he was very good at his peak in European combat as well, for a really dynamic member of that Shamrock Rovers team, a Dundalk team rather, and then changed himself to kind of become a right back for Rovers and played well into his mid-30s in that position and still does. And Pico, who I think they've badly missed in Europe, really badly missed, and have been so much better since he's come back in. And the image of him getting the crowds going to give Josh that big cheer, and Josh then mimicking his dad's kind of celebration in front, it's amazing to see, and I have so much respect for Stephen Bradley. I have no idea what he's going through, and he's handled himself amazingly well, and hope you enjoyed the weekend, Josh.
Yeah, truly lovely moment, and what sport is all about. Just to touch finally, we bang out of time, but the final one in green, we have Katie Taylor, of course, after that brilliant win against Karen Carabajal on Saturday night. So I guess the big story afterwards, she was dominant, Katie, in this fight. I was watching it in the pub, and talk now, of course, of Amanda Serrano rematch in Croke Park. Eddie Hearn really pushing forward this Croke Park, as was Katie afterwards. Talk in the papers as well that Chantel Cameron could be a opponent. She fights Jessica McCaskill on Saturday night, coming in Abu Dhabi to become the undisputed light welterweight champion. That would give Katie the chance to become a two-weight champion in Croke Park. So if Serrano doesn't work out, maybe Chantel Cameron works out. But Johnny, to see briefly Katie in Croke Park fighting would be probably the pinnacle of her career as well.
Yeah, and I presume a lot of people in the pub were watching it with you as well. Like people scrambling people were texting me to find out how to watch it, and there was a lot of interest in it. And like speaking of Ronan Finn, like Katie's longevity, it's amazing really. And maybe, I don't know, would you say there would be a swan song feel to it were she to have that big fight in Croke Park, but it would definitely be fitting in terms of her career and the national interest in her as well.
Absolutely. Listen, we've got two of the comments just to finish on. Comments from Patrick BQ. Well, we are starting summer here in Perth pretty soon. Beautiful spring day, 27 degrees. Life is good, lads. Jealous of the fact that it's not pitch black. And I would text in from my mum, Johnny, on WhatsApp. Lads, it's a good day when you can get up. No moan November. On that note,
your mother's a Monaghan lady, is she?
She's a Monaghan lady, yeah.
But I was just thinking why your family is so sound and successful. It's that hybrid. It's the Galway Monaghan link, because it's the Galway stuff that comes out at times
Johnny.
As well.
You're too kind. Yeah. On that lovely note, performance rankings, Hannon family at the very top of the list in green. That is your performance rankings this Tuesday morning.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
Yeah, 7:58 AM on this bank. Are we calling it a bank holiday Tuesday morning? Let's call it a bank holiday Tuesday morning. And it's a very good Tuesday morning for the BBC Leeds journalist and football reporter as well, Adam Pope. Adam, very good morning to you.
Good morning, guys.
You must not have come down. I was listening to yourselves on the podcast this morning on my drive into work, and the three of you were absolutely buzzing, and rightly so. What a performance.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's the Don't Go to Bed Just Yet podcast with Simon Ricks of the Kaiser Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, look, two of us on the podcast were very fortunate to be there at Anfield covering the game, and let's face it, guys, everybody expected Leeds to go to Anfield on Saturday night and probably take a bit of a beating, and that's just the way of things at the moment, the way it's gone with Jesse Marsh for a little while, 8 games without a win, and then they go and put in a performance like that. And you have to say, despite the keeper making 9 saves, they deserved to win the game. They took it to Liverpool where they could and got their breaks and won it. And it was an extraordinary night, and one that you've got to make the most of, because they just don't come around much, do they?
They don't. And like, you look at someone like Crescencio Somerville, celebrating turning 21, I guess, with that winner as well. What a moment. And I guess the hope now, he's got some criticism. He hasn't been the finished article just yet. But I mean, I guess the hope now is that this isn't a Federico Makeda for Man United against Villa moment where he scores the famous goal and then kind of fades into the darkness. But it could be the start of something special for him if he can keep doing things like that.
That's a really decent comparison that you made there to Makeda. Yeah, remember that extraordinary goal he scored, didn't he, on his debut? The thing with Somerville, he's been on the scene at Leeds for a little while now. Yeah, he turned 21 within a few hours of scoring that goal, as you say. But he arrived back in 2020 and came from Feyenoord. He'd been through the youth system there. He went on loan to Den Haag, and then he's been in the Dutch international youth system as well. He's absolutely shone in what we now call the 21s. Because Leeds got relegated from the top division of that, having been promoted to it just 2 seasons ago. So he's now playing in a sort of lower division of that, and is way too good for it. He was too good for it last year when they were in the higher division against the better academies, of Chelsea and Liverpool and everybody else. The thing is, could he do it at senior level? And we haven't seen too much to suggest that he could cope with it. He's missed a couple of chances lately, particularly against Arsenal, one against Leicester. He's been given his head, if you like, by the manager, by the head coach, Jesse Marsh, because he's been telling us, not least for putting the number 10 on his back, that this guy's the next one off the rank as far as they're concerned. They want to give him a go. They want to give him minutes. And you have to say, having had a decent game against Liverpool, he's crowned it off with a really, really good goal and a memory that will live forever. So maybe that's the big turning point for him. But you have to think, if Luis Sinistero was fit, guys, would he have started the game? Yes, he would have. And then maybe Crescencio would have been coming off the bench. Big question now is, does he deserve to keep his place for the game against Bournemouth at the weekend?
Did you buy into what Marsh was saying, Adam, that Leeds were genuinely a good bit better than what the results would suggest over the last sort of 7 or 8 games? Because it did seem that way, but you can only get away with that. So you can't get away with that every week. And if Liverpool had hockeyed them as you say, people would have suggested that was likely to happen. How is Jesse Marsh feeling this morning, and how much pressure would have been on him?
Yeah, I think if they had a terrible performance and a heavy result, and don't forget they lost their 6 under Bielsa last year, then I think it would have been very hard for the board to have kept supporting him for these next few games. He's been speaking like a man who feels that he's going to be in charge, certainly to the World Cup. This was prior to the Liverpool game. So there's no doubt that the board have been trying to give him every bit of weaponry, every tool to make sure that he can make this a success. And that's included bringing in psychologists, extra staff at the moment, what have you. They don't want to row back on a big decision to have got rid of Bielsa and brought Jesse Marsh in. So they're going to try and make it work. And thankfully for Jesse, it went the right way for him. But there's no doubt if, for example, they went to beat Bournemouth at the weekend, then the knives would be out again, to be quite honest, because it got so toxic ahead of the Liverpool game in terms of the performance away at Leicester, where the fans turned on the head coach. And then against Fulham, where they turned on the head coach, but particularly on the board as well. It just shows you that within the space of one performance and a couple of results, that it can get really nasty. So, I mean, I've got to be honest. When they were losing to Fulham with 7 minutes to go, 3-1, you wondered if that was 7 minutes left of his career. This would be amazing if he could turn this around, to get the crowd back inside, for the crowd to sort of not berate the board anymore for not making the signings they should have done, and to turn this around and make it a relatively successful season would be some going, and it would have shown some nerve as well by the board and by him as well in what he's doing. Yeah,
but so what's the transformation been like? Because it must almost be like a change in your complete political system in a country to go from Bielsa to anything really.
It's interesting. Look, this was sold as a sort of evolution and a progression, wasn't it, from the Bielsa days. It's been really hard trying to see. Look, firstly, in those first 12 games, when Jesse came in ahead of schedule, Bielsa was going to go in the summer. We knew that there was going to be a part in the ways. He had to sort of play scramble football. So it was difficult to sort of assess what style was being implemented, because it did change quite a bit over the next sort of 12 games or so, and thankfully he managed to keep them up. Now we're seeing his players come in and this, if you want to call it a Red Bull style, it's a lot more narrow, it's a lot more focused into the penalty spot. A bit like Bielsa in some ways, they try and regain possession very, very quickly and pressurise teams. That's very similar. But the transition, nobody saw an improvement in terms of the way they played. It wasn't as exciting, it wasn't as attractive. And largely in the Bielsa, despite there being in every season a long sort of spell where they weren't winning games and it all looked like it was going to fall apart, everybody sort of believed in it because he had that body of evidence behind him that mostly this worked, mostly it led to wins, and mostly certainly led to attractive football, but it did lead to some severe beatings as well. Fans were divided as to whether they wanted to sort of risk that and keep that going to the end of the season, and they could go out having kept them in the division and gone out in a blaze of glory, if you like, or they've tolerated them taking them down. They probably would have done because it was Bielsa. Jesse doesn't have that credit in the bank with the fans, I don't think, because he hasn't got the body of evidence behind him. So it's much harder for him. Plus, there's been, let's face it, there's been from different quarters a lot of sort of anti-Americanism as well towards him too. So it's been a really tough environment for him to work in, but maybe he's just starting to come through the other side.
I was going to ask you about Patrick Bamford, actually, but can I call you on that? Because whether we like it or not, coming from this part of the world, there is an unconscious kind of skepticism when anyone with an American accent speaks about football, and that's just how it is.
It is, and look, I sort of try to make this comparison that it's like a xenophobic thing almost. Bielsa got it, when you remember the Spygate issue where the Football League basically created a retrospective law to punish him for something that wasn't illegal when he was spying or sent someone to watch training at Derby, an open training session. I felt that a lot, and it's not just from fans, this comes from authorities as well. There was a lot directed towards him, being, this is what you get from people from South America. I thought it was really xenophobic and bordering on racist at times. And I think Jesse suffered a bit of that, even before he came. Some people will not tolerate having an American coach, and that's wrong because he has got some success behind him in MLS and obviously in Europe. Yeah, he's had his down times too. So you've got to give the guy a chance. The fact he kept in the division meant he deserved his shot at it this time around. But there's still those that really aren't taken to it, and those, I have to say, guys, that would have been, not saying happy, but we're sort of wanting a bit of a heavy defeat the weekend to see if that would push the board over the edge to get rid of him. Obviously, that's not a prevailing view because people don't want to see their side lose, but there certainly is that sort of antipathy towards him and what's going on at the moment. Obviously, the performance and the result against Liverpool has eased the pressure, and maybe it's going to give him enough leeway to convert a few of those sort of back on side, if you like. But there is a body that just won't ever have it, and that's... You're never going to change those people, are you, guys? I mean, it could be any other coach, other than the one that they want. If they're not happy with him, they don't like the sound of him, then they're never going to be happy with him. Probably a bit like the Benitez issue at Liverpool for different reasons. When he went to Everton, there were those that were never going to have him, even though he was a really good coach, and it turned out horribly for him there. Hopefully, it'll turn out better for Jesse in terms of his Leeds career.
Johnny's brought him up there already, Adam, but Patrick Bamford. You'd have to be concerned, and look, it's a conversation that comes up every week, I'm sure, among Leeds fans as to where the Patrick Bamford of old is. But even, I know you described the goal, I think, as the rusty toe poke goal for Somerville. But just leading up to the goal was a fairly rusty touch from Patrick Bamford, albeit it led to the goal, but surely he didn't mean it. What's your take on Bamford at the minute, and is it a concern going forward? Like, is his place in the team threatened at all?
It is a concern, guys, because he's been out with a series of injuries for the best part of a year. He hasn't scored since December last year. And now he's getting into the positions, now that he's, if you like, fit or certainly fit to do sort of 90 minutes or near enough. He's getting into the positions, but his confidence is gone and his touch quite clearly is gone. He also missed a great chance just prior to the sort of inadvertent setup for Somerville. So that is a massive concern. He's been stuck on 99 career league goals for, the best part of, 11 months now. But he has had a lot of injuries. So do you keep playing him and say that he plays back into form and eventually something will go in? You're sort of in that scenario, but that's tough. It'd be easy if there was another striker, guys. Rodrigo has got 6 goals, but he hasn't particularly played very well. So it's chopping and changing who plays at 9 for Leeds at the moment. The big thing, and I'm sure you've discussed this as well, is that why haven't they gone and got or successfully managed to land another striker that can get you 15 to 20 goals, and that has to happen in January because clearly they can't rely on Patrick just at the moment. I think it'll come good for him. I'm quite optimistic. I do think it'll come back round for him, but it's very, very difficult. And also, the clamour to play Joe Gelhardt off the bench, that's been pretty rife to see. Well, give him a go. They have done it this season. They did it at Brentford. It didn't turn out very well, not particularly because of Joe's performance, but because of a defensive collapse that saw them beaten 5-2. He's a real talent. He's a goal scorer, but again, I don't think at 20 he's going to get you 15 or 20 goals in a full season just yet. So they do need that striker in there. But there are signs that others are starting to sort of chip in a little bit. You've got obviously Somerville coming in. Jack Harrison will always get a few for you too. Sinisterra, providing he stays fit, he's going to score a few goals. So the goals are starting to come from elsewhere. Could just do with a few more. Brendan Aronson looks like he can threaten too. But in terms of that number 9 and the people that can convert the chances that they are creating, seriously, they are lacking. They need more competition up there, and that's going to be a 30 million, 40 million pound signing, isn't it? You would have thought, and they've missed out on De Ketelaere already, and Gakpo so far. And those sort of players, their prices are going to be even more if they were to go back in for them. And one of them's already gone anyway, De Ketelaere to Italy.
As you mentioned, Adam, like the two big games in the league coming up this side of the World Cup. You've got Bournemouth, as you said, this weekend at home, and then you have Tottenham away. Like we were just chatting, myself and Johnny, on the show on Saturday about the Premier League sack race and the odds. This was, of course, before the game on Saturday evening, and Jesse Marsh was the hot favourite, 8-15 odds on to be the next manager sacked. And I'm just looking at the odds this morning. He's gone from 8-15 to 10-3. He's now the second favourite. So Ralph Hasenhüttl has replaced him as the 9-4 favourite to be sacked. Funny enough, Jurgen Klopp has shot up the rankings to number 3. But I mean,
isn't this the mad thing? Like, is Klopp under more pressure than Marsh now after a game? One game, like, you know.
That's the point as well, Adam. Is that, and you guys made it the podcast. The fact that after the match at the full-time whistle, and you would have seen it at the ground, the Leeds players have bought into this because they're running over to Jesse Marsh. There's hugs all round, there's smiles all round. So, if nothing else, the players have bought into him.
Yeah, you can't say he's lost the dressing room. You can't. He's we've spoken to a lot of players. Obviously, publicly, they are going to say they're right behind it. But you can sort of, when you've been around it, like you know, guys, you speak to managers, you speak to players all the time, on or off the record, and you get a feeling whether they're meaning it. And generally, you don't find anybody sort of dissenting, or that there's any sort of little divisions in the pack, if you like, that people are doing their best to get behind this. The problem is if it continues in terms of a losing streak, that's really hard for them to keep doing that and believing in it. However, I think you're right. The body language, the hug from Mark Rocker in particular, and I think Christensen came over as well. Yeah, it was a proper sort of, we've done it, we've believed in it, we've gone and come into a really difficult game, and this system has seen us through. I think what I would say on the other side of that, I don't know if you saw the game, the way Leeds play though, it must be quite hard to believe in a system that allows quality, wide players like Roberts and like Trent Alexander-Arnold to have a lot of the ball in wide areas so they can deliver almost at will. To have that confidence to if you like, pack out your defence and make sure you don't make a mistake against the likes of Salah or whatever in those wide areas it's a real test of faith. And it's scary at times, but it came off at the weekend. When it works, it works. If they can do it for 90 minutes and maintain the energy, then great. But it's a quite scary way of watching football at times against some of the, particularly against sort of the top 6 sides. But so far he's managed to sort of, well, let's say struggle through this. I tried to compare it. I think the other way I said this in the podcast as well. Like, I just felt like Leeds as a club were like trying to pass a kidney stone last week, and either it comes out naturally and you carry on, or you have to remove it with surgery. And they were at that point last week, I really felt. And let's face it might still be that case at the moment. But could it be, much as we felt the Chelsea victory, this was a bit of a defining moment for Jesse Marsh? Could this be a real turning point in this season and for him and how people look at him if he can back it up on Saturday?
Clock's going back, 1st November, kidney stones.
Yeah, exactly. Don't happen. It's all linked. Absolutely not. That's the one, I suppose, Adam, a lot of Irish Leeds fans tuning in this Saturday to see if it can be followed up on. Great stuff, Adam, as always. Thanks a million this morning.
Oh, pleasure. Nice to speak to you guys.
Great stuff. Adam Pope there, of course, from BBC. Covers Leeds very, very closely. Great win for them at the weekend at Anfield. Right, a reminder that Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Each week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Apple Green store near you. To enter, check out @OffTheBall on Twitter. Just like and retweet our Braeburn competition post and you are in the draw. Braeburn coffee never compromises on quality or taste to give you the best on-the-go coffee experience on the road. Available at Apple Green today. The Creaslough Community Support Fund has been established by the Irish Red Cross in collaboration with An Post and Apple Green to provide rapid and long-term assistance to the Creaslough community. All donations to this fund will be dedicated to the support of those who have been bereaved, injured, made homeless or left without an income as a result of the tragedy in Donegal. In the days and weeks ahead, the Irish Red Cross will work with the community of Creaslough to ensure that all contributions will be used effectively and as needed to assist those affected by this incident. Please donate to the Creaslough Community Support Fund. Right, up next, we'll get the Liverpool perspective on that defeat to Leeds with broadcaster Gareth Roberts. First, on Football Saturday, myself and Johnny were joined by Damian Delaney, and he gave his honest take on Darwin Nunez's start to life at Anfield. Back after these.
Look, I mean, one-off incidents like that, you don't mind, because like you said, they are good players, and that Shakhtar player is obviously a good player. It happens, and I wouldn't even be too critical of Darwin Nunez for the miss against Ajax. I mean, it happens, you know what I mean? The ball just takes a funny turn, whatever it might be. It's just when you build in his overall performances, well, I'm judging him on, that miss, no manager is going to have a go at a player for that. It means it happens. So it's just his overall game I'm talking about, He just looks a little bit raw, a little bit like a kind of a baby deer just running around all over the place, full of enthusiasm, bouncing. There's no real structure to his play. That first half against Ajax, that front three were all over the place. And I think Nunez was supposed to be playing from the left, but he a number of times ended up over on the right-hand side next to Salah. And there was an element of unpredictability, which, a lot of people say that's a good thing, but managers like Klopp don't like that. I don't know whether he was given specific instructions or they were given roles to interchange. But if they were, you interchange. If somebody's moved, you go into their space. But he was just running into other people's zones and areas of the pitch where he shouldn't be there. And he had a lot of enthusiasm and he got his goal. It's just that's the type of stuff we need to learn about. Obviously, the incident with Bassi where he got a finger in the lip and he went down, that's not a good look either. Bassi pushed him off the ball quite easily as well. And a lot of centre-backs will start getting a feel for him and start thinking, if you're physical with him, he doesn't give anything back. He just goes over. So that's what I'm talking about. The misses, I would, one-off incident, anything can happen,
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB GAA.
There's Mark and Richie, and I'll never forget, as I'm staring out at the camera here, I was standing here, he was coming in at me with the ball, and he threw his famous patented dummy hand pass, because he's a big handballer, with his right hand, and I literally moved into another parish.
Subscribe to the OTB GAA podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. OTB AM, with Gillette, in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo.
Yes, 17 minutes past 8 on this Tuesday morning on OTB AM with myself and Johnny Ward. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. We're going to continue now the reaction, I guess, to action at Anfield on Saturday night. Liverpool 1, Leeds 2, with Gareth Roberts, the Liverpool-based football journalist. Good morning to you, Gareth. How are things?
Morning. Things have been better, fair to say. Not the most enjoyable time at the moment watching Liverpool, but there's a game tonight. It's the Champions League and all the rest of it. So if you're not up for that, well, you're doing it wrong.
I'm sure. I was going to say, I said good morning to you. It probably wasn't a good morning. That probably wasn't the right word. But and we will get to the Napoli talk ahead. But we do have to look back on that game on Saturday night. And I mean, what was your take on it? It was disappointing. It's clearly something that's frustrating for Klopp that this keeps happening. That the City game, everyone is saying, right, this is a corner turned again, and the performance is much better. But to lose to Forest and then to lose to Leeds, arguably two of the out of form teams in the division, quite worrying.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no dressing it up. Is that the performances against City? Both in the league and in the Community Shield are the two standout performances of the season. And then other than that, they absolutely thump Bournemouth, they absolutely thump Rangers. And you take those, they're good results. You shouldn't be sniffy about it, but they're not they're not statements, are they? I think they're games that people expect Liverpool to win anyway. The City game should have been the statement. That was the result that got the place buzzing again, and people were like, right, okay, now we're going to see the real Liverpool. So to go away from that, and okay, there's the Ajax result sandwiched in between, which has secured knockout football in the European Cup again. But to lose, as you say, to Forest and to Leeds, they're absolute bankers for Liverpool. They're games Liverpool should be winning. And look, without sounding disrespectful to both of those sides, because both of them work the socks off, it should take more than working your socks off to beat a Liverpool side with the amount of quality they've got. And I include, that they've got injuries and things like that. The sides that they're putting out should still be good enough to beat those sides. And, when I'm getting people I went to university with who support Nottingham Forest getting in touch with me and saying, well, I didn't see that coming. Well, neither did I. And then, Leeds, after the Ajax result, I sort of thought, well, we've learnt our lesson. We're always good at home. Saturday night, under the lights, all of that type of thing. I expected it to be buzzing, good atmosphere, and I thought that the team would feed off that. But obviously it was a horrendous start, gave a daft goal away, and then never really sort of got it back from there, really. I mean, all this said, though, and it was it was a sucker punch at the end, but it was a sucker punch that you could see coming. You could feel it coming. It wasn't quite right in the ground either with a lot of the support shown, I didn't think. And you could see some of the players getting frustrated with that as well. But, it goes both ways, that the crowd's reaction comes from the players' performances, and that wasn't good enough either. So, when that goal comes, I think a lot of people were like, well, yeah, we've got what we deserved on the night, which was nothing. So it is, of course, worrying because, all of a sudden these positive records that Liverpool have taken a long time to build up are starting to tumble. The first defeat in front of fans since 2017. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk was unbeaten in front of fans in the league at Anfield as well. So it is worrying when those things start to tumble away because, my argument forever and more when I've been writing, when I've been talking, is any success is always built up around what you do at home first and foremost, what you do in front of your own fans. And obviously there's been difficulties away from home this season for Liverpool. We know that. But when they've spread now into home results as well, which is what we saw with the Leeds game, well, that is a worry, no two ways about it.
Can I just ask you, Gareth, about you're saying that something wasn't quite right in the crowd. Is this the first time in, I guess, almost in Klopp's reign that you have these rumblings?
I just think, you've got to be sensible about it and say, the reason there's great expectations for this side is what Klopp's done with the side, with the club. And look, people don't want to see that fall away. And you dip your toe into social media world at the moment, and there's all kinds of kickoffs on there, all kinds of arguments, people having a go at each other about the owners, about the manager, about certain players, and all that type of thing. And it's because everyone expected Liverpool to go again, to be up there again, to be challenging for the title, and so to be out of the title race so soon, it's not even Christmas, it's not even bonfire night. Of course that's going to lead to frustrations. Equally though, I would say these things can be turned around very quickly, and while Liverpool are now not contenders for the title, there's plenty to play for. We go tonight in the Champions League. I think the odds for the Champions League are very interesting if you look at them, because Liverpool are still rated by the bookies, if you like, and I think that says something about Liverpool's track record in this competition and also the quality in the squad. With a little bit more luck around injuries, we can get, the best side out on the pitch more often than not, and certainly have them ready for Champions League nights, then who knows where it goes. And I think the bookies odds, recognise that fact, whereas equally, you look at the odds for the title and Liverpool are now way out of it, and rightly so.
We referenced this earlier in the show, Gareth. 12 Premier League games, Liverpool have conceded the first goal in 8 of those, and on 4 of those occasions that was within the first quarter of an hour. It's almost becoming too common now to not be a trend, and you what does it say? Is it psychology? Is it just that they cannot start the game quicker? Because the team, as you said, that we've come to know with Liverpool winning trophies was a team that started games on the front foot, the team that brought the game to the opposition, and it seems like that's not the case anymore with these slow starts.
Yeah, and look, it all builds up, doesn't it? And every time it happens again, I think it almost leads to the possibility of it happen once more, if you know what I mean. So what I mean by that is every time it happens, it gives potential opposition in the future a boost. They look at that and they say, listen, get into them early, have a fast start, go at them. They don't like it that way. Equally, Liverpool are probably looking at it saying, we need to keep it tight early, lads, no mistakes and all that kind of thing. That's got a psychological impact as well. And I think those two things clashing together, there is definitely a bit of fragility there at the moment. There's no two ways about that. It's far too easy to get through Liverpool's midfield, and then mistakes have crept in at the back as well. And look, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, if it wasn't for the form of Alisson this season so far, we could be staring at a much worse situation. So I'm constantly trying to find positives in it, because that's the way I try and be about as a fan. And the fact that I'm going tonight, I'm going to the match tonight. I want to see something good. I want to see a good Liverpool result. And look, even in that Leeds game, I heard the piece that was on before me about Nunez. And, Nunez in the Leeds game, for me, should score 2 goals. He has 2 brilliant opportunities. Both times, if he had it in him to dink the keeper, he scored a goal. Instead, he goes a bit percentage both times. Well, one time he tries to take it round the keeper, the other time he goes percentage. And Liverpool haven't got a goal. So it's got to be a situation for me of Liverpool taking the chances. They've still got players in the side who can do that. And I think we're going to have to cop for the fact that for the time being, sides can get through Liverpool. We're not going to see a Liverpool side setting any records defensively this season. So that then puts more pressure on the lads up front. But unfortunately, as Klopp referenced in his press conference, there isn't the opportunity to rotate there really currently. So we're getting all these games coming thick and fast, but there's not too much you can do with it, because Jota's out, because other players are out, and it seems never ending, the injury situation. And obviously that is why people are talking about the owners and the fact that we've not strengthened really, or not strengthened enough now for some time. You've got Diaz out as well, so the task is difficult, and the task keeps sort of rolling into each other. So the more you play the same players, that they're becoming more tired, then you're asking them to go again in another game because there's no other options. They haven't got the intensity that you used to seeing from Liverpool. They got outrun again at the weekend by Leeds, not for the first time this season. And again, that's an odd thing to see. Like, Liverpool always worked harder, it seemed, than the opposition, and now the opposition are working harder than Liverpool, and again, that's got to be a concern.
You kind of referenced it there, Gareth. The schedule is so utterly insane that you got to have for obviously the players. You got to have massive sympathy for the coaching staff here, because what are you supposed to do? And Liverpool, to me, it wasn't a massive surprise that they couldn't build on the Man City win, because they put so much into that, obviously, and that was a game that they weren't expected to win really. But then you're straight back in it, and you open up the paper today, it's like Champions League is back on again tonight, 3 days later, and this is a team that already looks tired.
Yeah, 100%. And look, you could see it, couldn't you, against Manchester City, that they were flying into tackles, that they were determined to show what they were about, and that they were bang up for it. But when they tried to go again, a few nights on against West Ham, it was a bit more of a slog. And, we were all coming out of that ground that Wednesday night saying, oh, well, we'll just take the win. 3 points is 3 points. All of those kind of comments were coming out about the match rather than the actual performance. So to then see a sluggish performance on the Saturday early kickoff,
and it was the Saturday early kickoff as well. It's almost like, how do you lift yourself again physically and mentally?
Yeah, 100%. And as I say, you look at sort of Liverpool's roster and the players that could be coming in and doing something but aren't available. It's not helping them whatsoever. There's no Naby Keita. Chamberlain didn't look anywhere near it when he come on against Nottingham Forest. And these things keep piling up. You got Fabinho looks absolutely knackered. He looks like a different player. Players are just drifting past them. He was one of the best players in his position in the world for me. But right now he doesn't look anywhere near that. And now you see him he's griping at people on the pitch. He's griping at the manager. He's griping at fans as well. It's clearly getting to him. And on the one hand you can say, well, at least he cares. But on the other hand, you're like, well, you're not concentrating on the job at hand if you're letting the inner chimp escape, if you like, and you're starting raging at the manager and the crowd and all this. Just crack on with winning tackles, crack on with closing space down like you were always so good at. Because at the moment, the chinks are light in Liverpool's midfield. Well, they aren't chinks, they're huge. And play, like I said before, teams are just playing through Liverpool. And it's putting too much onus on the lads at the back to keep them out.
You've mentioned, Gareth, already the owners and the recruitment, and even just reading James Pearson, the Athletic, talking about Fenway Sports Group over-reliance on Klopp's ability to balance the books, and even Jamie Carragher talking on Twitter, I think it was, at the weekend, where he said it is plan A or no one in terms of players coming in. That's exactly what Pep Lijnders says in his book. That's been a mistake. So, have there been errors made where they don't go for the plan B option often enough, that the recruitment hasn't been what maybe it needs to be? Maybe the injuries have highlighted that to a degree, but clearly something is awry with the recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem that they've sort of spun the wheel one time too many here now, and there's too many players on the wrong side of 30 that are knocking around in that squad as well. So, to keep asking them to go again, if they're 18, 19, 20 and they've got the quality that you need, well, they might be able to do that. But when they're in the 30s, it's a different ball game, and I think that's what we're seeing. And, it did seem that even during the window, they changed their minds, didn't they? Because they're going for players at the start of the window, not getting those players, seemingly giving up and saying, okay, we'll leave it, and then at the very end panicking, getting Artur on loan, who had a questionable injury record, and now he's injured. So that doesn't look like great forward planning all round. And I think everyone's got to take some responsibility. 100% the owners, 100% the owners should be putting more money in, backing the manager, being realistic about the game they are in as much as possible. And I think sometimes they are overly conservative. But equally, maybe this time around, Klopp's being a little bit too loyal to some of his great servants. There are all the cliches in Liverpool's past about letting players grow old on other clubs' books and things like that. And look, Milner's come in, done a great job against Manchester City and deservedly took plaudits for that. But you can't ask him to play 3 games in a week. Henderson doesn't look capable of playing that amount of football at the moment either. Fabinho's looking gassed as well. And then you've got, Keita and Chamberlain who are very rarely available. And then you're reliant on younger lads. And this is what I mean about all the issues rolling into each other. All of a sudden Curtis Jones was called from nowhere to play against Nottingham Forest after the ear infection for Thiago. And he didn't look ready to go, to me. And then all of a sudden he's taking pelters now from fans for not playing well. That seems to have affected his confidence. And then he couldn't do the basics in the game the other night. So, all of these things, these issues, I think you said before, you've got to have some sympathy for the coaching team right now. I would totally agree with that, because all this talk about transfers and money and all that, that's great, and hopefully Liverpool listen, or the owners listen, and do something about it in January.
I think that needs to be said as well, Shane, in the sense of it's very possible, if not probable, that Klopp's Liverpool managerial career will end in failure in the sense of the end of it, even though it's been amazingly successful. But you need to understand that it's completely irrational what these players are being asked to do at the moment. Like 4 games in a week and a half at the levels and the intensity that you're asked to be playing. And fair enough, he should have younger legs. But, as Gareth says, there are a lot of extenuating circumstances there. You got to, sometimes you have to divorce yourself when you're watching these games twice a week, 3 times a week, and say, this is not natural. And, they shouldn't really be asked to be doing this in the first place. And that's exacerbating the issues that Klopp has, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, Gareth, is that the players are frustrated as well, because I think there was a moment on Saturday night where I think maybe Harvey Elliott made a slight mistake and the crowd got on his back, and then Fabinho was kind of gesturing towards the crowd to get off his back, and those are things you just didn't see with and then you have Klopp as well, who's kind of tetchy in press conferences, understandably, because he's not getting the results that he feels the team deserve. But when you're seeing moments like that, chinks in the armour, as you say, it's concerning, but it's clearly something that is affecting the players as well.
Yeah, 100%, and it will do, won't it? I mean, especially when they've experienced what they've experienced and done what they've done. I'm sure if you were, having a conversation with them in the summer, all the conversations would have been about challenging for the title. you did get the sense, I would say, certainly towards the end of the window, that both the manager and some of the players were a little bit concerned about squad depth and things like that. But much of it's random as well, isn't it, in terms of when the injuries come, who they come to. And this is the second season in recent times where it's been the case that Liverpool seem really up against it in terms of having personnel who are available. And then of course that leads to conversations about, well, what are the medical staff doing and what are the physios doing and all, is it? But ultimately a club is all of these people, isn't it, including the owners. They've got to all come together, take some responsibility for this current situation and bash it out, come up with a strategy that gets Liverpool out of here and back where they should be. And look, I totally understand the way it's dealt with in the media. I do sometimes have a little cry about the media. Some of it I don't like, but equally I understand that a club the size of Liverpool, starting the way they have this season, and it's the worst start to a season since Klopp's taken over at Liverpool, then of course people are going to write and talk about that. But every time they do, it makes the situation slightly worse, and it feels like the pressure, the walls are closing in even more. I mean, you look at tonight's game, in a different circumstance, we'd all be saying, well, it's a dead rubber. Liverpool have qualified, Napoli have qualified, we'll crack on. Because of the situation we're in, and because of the recent defeats and things like that, Klopp said it's not a game for rotation. Now, why is he saying that? Well, I think he's saying that because he wants a win for morale of the supporters, for his own morale, for morale of the players. He wants some kind of result tonight in that game, which is a dead rubber, but he wants a positive, because another defeat only adds to all this, and it adds to the pressure. And then maybe once again you're seeing players who seemingly can't pass to each other and making daft mistakes that you don't often see from professional footballers.
Yeah, I think Liverpool have to maybe win by more than 4 goals tonight to claim an unlikely top spot in the group. So as you say, it's pretty much a dead rubber. But when you look at Napoli, Napoli are coming off the back of a 4-0 win against Sassuolo in Serie A at the weekend, and they're brimming with confidence. I think they've given back some of their contingent of tickets for the game, so the fans recognise that it's a dead rubber. But they're going to come to Liverpool, Gareth, with every intent of causing further headaches for Jurgen Klopp. So you'd wonder in terms of rotation. I know Ibrahima Konate has sat on the bench, for example, the last couple of games, and he's back from injury. So maybe do we see him tonight, or will there be much in terms of change of personnel?
I think certainly Konate. I think the manager's looked like he's been itching to play him. There was a bit of a giveaway comment in one of his press conferences the other week where he said, the medical staff are telling me he can't play a full game. That sort of sounded like to me that he wanted him to play a full game and is being told internally no. So he did say, yeah, he was likely to start. I think he's going to step in for Joe Gomez, you would have thought, whose confidence does look a little bit shot and obviously culminated in the mistake at the weekend. So I imagine he drops out, Konate comes in. There's talk as well of Ramsey finally being available as well. Obviously he's been injured since his signing, made some appearances at reserve level, as I still call it because I'm old, but he could make a senior start. I quite fancy him to come on as a sub, maybe, depending on where the game's gone, rather than starting. But as Klopp said, and as I said before, there's not too much opportunity for rotation, simply because there's not many players available that you would be dropping in. There's not too much up front, obviously, because we've got 2 main attackers injured, and then we've sold Minamino, we've sold Origi, so all of these sorts of understudies that you may have called on in this situation, they're no longer there either. So I think it's going to be very close to the sides that have got the recent results, save for 1 or 2.
It's funny, there's been a lot of talk, Gareth, about formation, and whether it's 4-2-3-1 or, as we saw at the weekend at times as well, the 4-4-2 with the diamond. You can talk about formation till the cows come home, but if players aren't doing their jobs, then it's irrelevant. And like you saw the defending for the Somerville winner, and some of the Liverpool defenders almost like statues. Like maybe they were surprised by how bad Bamford's touch was in the lead up, but there's just moments like that where you're thinking, Jesus, the fight. And you referenced already the running, the fact that Leeds ran so much further than Liverpool, and Even we were speaking earlier in the show about the fact that, at times Leeds were trying to get, Marsh was throwing the ball to his players, trying to get the ball back on the pitch as fast as possible, which is unheard of for an away team at Anfield to try and, who's looking for a winner because they feel like it's there. But all those little things add up, and there's just concerns. But a lot of focus on formation, but at the end of the day, it comes down to effort.
Yeah, effort and I would say form as well, because one thing Liverpool have been able to do, even in recent times, is you've been so sure that you're going to get 7 out of 10 or more from certain players, and we've not been getting it from them. And to be talking about Virgil van Dijk as a man who's quite regularly made mistakes this season seems absolutely bananas when you compare it to what we've had out of him since he signed for Liverpool. But that is the reality. He hasn't been playing well. Then you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's been so central to what Liverpool have done over the last few years. You've seen him rested and brought out of the team and things like that. Again, that's unheard of. It's Robertson now, for me, is starting to come back to the form we know and love from him, which is a huge positive for Liverpool. But again, we've sort of missed the real Robertson, and it seems like a lot of them all at once have had a huge drop off. I mentioned Fabinho before as well. You take Sadio Mane out of the team as well. You put Darwin Nunez in, and it feels like he's finding his feet, and his teammates are finding his feet. In terms of how you deal with him, around him. The piece before mentioned, didn't it, sort of, some of the runs and stuff he seems to get in other people's way at times, and I think that's totally understandable. I wouldn't put that down to a problem, a fault on his side. It's more he's new to the side still. He's still relatively new. He causes problems, but Liverpool don't look like, it's not systematic anymore from Liverpool. It's not that machine like performance from them. 4 wins out of 12. You think about when they started the season, when they went on to win the league, like they were unbelievable, and they just blew everyone away, and it was all done by Christmas or just after. This time around it's the complete opposite. But like, as I said before, it's a strange season as well, isn't it? We've got this, all these fixtures pushed in before December the 12th. We end that run with the Southampton game at home. Then we've got the World Cup. Then we've got a transfer window where the owners can show, we can still go out and buy someone, hopefully. And then it's sort of, well, we all have a look again, don't we? Because where's everyone going to be then? It's hard to say what injuries will happen at the World Cup. What form will players be in? There's still a huge chance for Liverpool to do something with this season. There's no doubt about that, but 100% there's work to be done psychologically, getting players fit, getting players bought, getting some players out as well, I think is probably key. I mean, we keep talking about the owners, but we know that they like to balance the books. We know that they don't like a bloated squad. I think we've got to get some players going out the other way now as well.
Gareth, great stuff as always. Thanks a million and enjoy the match tonight. Gareth Roberts there, of course, Liverpool-based football journalist. It is time on this Tuesday morning at 8:41 AM for the Sports Pages.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not, yes. No.
You did say good morning as well. It's kind of like an imposition when sometimes it's like, what's that line where the guy goes up to he's having a bet in America at the races, and the lady says back, "You have a good day, sir," and he's like, "I've made other plans." I think Gareth has made other plans this morning.
Good morning was an assumption on my behalf. Good morning to Cathal Milani, though.
Morning, lads. How's it going?
Keeping well. I'll quickly run through these back pages here. I've still got it. Klopp insists his hunger as strong as ever. United look to tie down Rashford. United will secure Marcus Rashford's future at Old Trafford before the end of the year to fend off interest from rival clubs. So he's entered the final 8 months of his £200,000 sterling a week contract, and United will either offer him new terms or trigger the 1-year option on his current deal. Otherwise, he will be able to open talks formally with foreign clubs from the 1st of January. Farrell beefs up squad for November tests. Ireland have broadened their options ahead of the start of the Autumn International Series. 12 more players added to Andy Farrell's squad yesterday, so 49 in camp. Ahead of the games this weekend, the A game against the All Blacks 15, and then of course the Springboks on Saturday. And then Brilliant Clifford is a level above but must beware curse of the gong. That's an interesting piece in the Irish Daily Mail on the how players who've won the Footballer of the Year over the years tend to struggle for the year or two thereafter. Something tells me David Clifford won't struggle.
You see his gathering on the ground point the other day. Jesus Christ.
Scandalous.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
I mean, that was the East Kerry Championship win over Mid Kerry at the weekend, and I think he scored 9 points, if I'm not mistaken, and he was involved in 113 of the 116 in terms of like winning frees and getting
What did he do
assists.
for the rest of the game?
Exactly, what was he at?
Yeah.
There's 3 points that he wasn't
Thinking
involved
about his award.
Exactly. Jesus. What a player. End of days, Klopp. Don't judge my cop flops until season is finished. I doubt Klopp himself called them flops, but yeah, that's the back of the Irish Daily Star. Sanchez, I'd love to dump Spurs. That was the reference we made earlier to all the Marseille players with links to Arsenal, how much they'd love to knock Tottenham out of the Champions League tonight. Racing's Ironman Kevin Manning brings curtain down on 40-year career. Lovely photograph there with him.
I meant to reference that. It's the back of the Independent here as well. It's a lovely photo as well of a jockey in action on soft ground. Like, he first came across Jim Bulger in 1982, the year that I was born. Like, that's 40 years ago.
How old he is.
That's 40 years ago. He's been in the game, so he's 55 now. It's kind of one of these things that we generally didn't ask Kevin Manning what age he was out of respect. I remember writing an article before when I was working for the Irish Independent saying that Jim Bulger was going to say that Ronan Whelan is his successor when he retires. Kevin Manning was quite annoyed at me because he thought that I implied that his retirement was nigh. That must be 5-6 years ago. So he's gone a long time. Amazing career of longevity, and had to starve himself really to do the weight for 40 years. So I hope he's a good steak meal now tonight and enjoys his retirement.
Fair play. Enjoy the retirement, Kevin. There's a great photo of him after riding poetic flair to victory at Ascot last year in the back of the Star. Ukraine want Iran out. Ukraine have appealed to FIFA to kick Iran out of the World Cup. Iran has been accused of supplying weapons to Russia in their ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Several nations also unhappy with Iran for allegedly breaking FIFA statutes on human rights and discrimination amid riots and protests.
Where's the World Cup again?
Yeah, exactly. England kicking off their World Cup campaign, of course, against Iran on the 21st of November. Back of the Irish Daily Mirror. Judging us now, unfair. Klopp, end of the season is the time to give verdicts on successes and failures. Sanchez, I'm going to enjoy beating you. That game, Marseille against Spurs in Group D, kicks off at 8 o'clock. And again, Kevin on his retirement, 40 years in the saddle. Kev calls it a day. Back page of the Irish Sun. Boot them out. Ukraine demand finalists be axed. Iran World Cup row. You've got Ant ban his agony. Spurs boss indispensable. That's referencing Antonio Conte. Touchline ban for tonight's game against Marseille. The number 2 Christian Delaney is the man who will step into the limelight. Pog, Cat KO, WC blows pile up.
I see Neil O'Riordan as a team of the year as well. How many Rovers players in that, I wonder?
Yeah, we'll tell you now. Might as well have a quick look at it because
Rovers and Derry dominance probably.
We've referenced it, yes. So you've got Aidan Keena of Sligo Rovers, Rory Gaffney, Dylan Watts, Shamrock Rovers, Will Patching, Derry City, Gary O'Neill, Shamrock Rovers, Adam O'Reilly, St Pat's, Joe Redmond, St Pat's, Mark Connolly, Dundalk Derry, Monaghan man, Cameron Dummigan, Derry City, Alan Manus, Shamrock Rovers, and Andy Lyons, Shamrock Rovers. I've done that arseways on the backwards way, but
Mark Connolly's a very, very good player.
Talented player, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Rovers players in that team.
One Sligo Rovers man who's, I think, could definitely leave, or certainly he's been linked with Aidan Keena. He's been a revelation.
They do well to hold on to him. AJ not right for Fury. Anthony Joshua admits he was not mentally fit to fight Tyson Fury in their proposed clash on December 3rd. I think on the front page as well there is indeed a sporting story on the front page of the Irish Mirror. Tyson US ban over Kinahan link. Boxer Tyson Fury and his brother Tommy have admitted they are banned from the US over the heavyweights links to Irish mob boss Daniel Kinahan. The Irish Times, and I've butchered this now and I'm going to struggle to get the back of the Irish Times in the front of it. There it is. So
I was reading the Indo the other day and I was like, do you remember the Indo used to be a broadsheet?
I know.
Forget it was the exact same.
Exactly,
you have to try to manage it.
Creel and Dale Ende poised to take centre stage against Ireland. So delayed Springboks expected to name team today. So we'll of course chat to Alan Quinlan about all of that on the show. Plenty of other bits there. Casey back to do what he does best for an Piercing, and a bit more Horner backs for Verstappen over Red Bull Sky Sports boycott. So Max Verstappen hasn't been talking to Sky in the last couple of days because comments made by one of their reporters, it was Ted Kravitz in fact, made those comments that Verstappen didn't really like, talking about the nature of Verstappen's title win last year. Dublin Marathon organisers unveil entry details for 2023. Congrats to all who ran it on Sunday, and fair play to you. Not an easy thing to do. Eagles remain undefeated with big win over Pittsburgh Steelers. The Philadelphia Eagles beating the Steelers 35-13, 7-0 now they are in the NFL, so what a start to the season for them.
Should reference this as well, Shane. The back of the Independent, there is exclusive extracts from the book on the Dooley greats from Offaly, so always nice to get a feel for a book if you want to buy it. Some great stuff about being in a Thai prison there, which might whet your appetite.
Absolutely. So the back page of the Guardian penultimately is uncertain future. Hampton dropped by England over attitude at team camps. Hannah Hampton, a member of England's victorious Euro 2022 squad, has been dropped by Serena Wiegman because of her behaviour and attitude at the team's camps. She's 21-year-old Aston Villa goalkeeper, not called up by Wiegman since the Euros, where she deputised alongside Ellie Roebuck for Mary Earps, and is unlikely to be selected again under this England manager. So, interesting story there from the England camp. Klopp admits no quick fix to rough period for Liverpool. You've got a rugby story there. Farrell and May back in squad for battle with Pumas for England, and Papua New Guinea thrash Wales to set up England clash. And then finally the back page of the Times as well. May rushes back for England. Farrell also fit to face Argentina at Twickenham, but Courtney Laws is ruled out. Red Bull lifts Sky boycott. They've confirmed they'll bring their boycott of Sky to an end for the next Formula 1 race in Brazil a week on Sunday. And Collis Kimmery request Wales. The Wales football team could change their name to Kimmery after the World Cup. The Welsh name, of course, for the country, already used by the Football Association of Wales in its internal and external communications, but they're planning after the World Cup to change the name. Noel Mooney, in fact, is the Chief Executive of the Football Association of Wales. Cal, before we get into the morning's sports headlines, we have to pay tribute to Seamus Power. We haven't touched on him on the show this morning, but I was watching the action in Bermuda on Sunday as he not cruised home, but like 2 shots ahead heading into the last, won by a shot in the end, but supremely impressive.
Yeah, fantastic, and great for him to, I think he's up to 32nd in the world now as well, which is very significant, and he's going to be in the Masters again next year as well, and he can plan a schedule now, but it was great to get over the line. The big story of the day was probably it's probably a harsh word, but implosion of Ben Griffin, who...
it was an implosion, go for it.
Well, yeah, I know, but we've all been there where things are going against you, and things then start going against you, but he started brilliantly, and he was in control, it seemed, and then just fell apart in the back nine really. But to be fair, the conditions were really, really tough, and even Seamus Power with the shot into the last, he'd only, I think, 86 yards, little flick of a little wedge, and managed to spin it back off the green, so he was lucky that he had the shots in hand and he could take 3 from the bottom of the green and win by a shot. But Ben Griffin, yeah, it started going against him. He had a run of bogeys, I think 4 in a row, 5 in a row, and then a double bogey in there as well, and really disappointing for him. But for Seamus Power, I mean, it's such a significant win. I think it's back-to-back wins for Irish players on the PGA Tour after McIlroy won the CJ Cup the week before, and Power really will hopefully be on the Ryder Cup team next year now. He spoke to Luke Donald, who was at that tournament during the week, and he's certainly in Luke Donald's plans. He said that he mentioned to him about the tournament where GB&I will play a continental Europe team in the early part of next year, and that Power now, because he has certainty around his schedule, can try and make time for that tournament if he's going to be selected. And you know, wouldn't it be great to see Power, Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy on a Ryder Cup team in Italy next year? And it's such a brilliant story for Seamus Power, because he probably hasn't gone the traditional route, in that he isn't someone that broke onto the tour at a young age. When you see the age profile of so many of the players now on the PGA Tour in their early 20s, Power is the wrong side of 30, but he's, you know, developed into such a solid player, and 32 in the world says it all right now, so he should be in contention for all the majors next year. And you know, probably the next step for him is to win a big tournament on the PGA Tour, perhaps even start contending in the majors, so it's onwards and upwards for him. And obviously if he could make the Ryder Cup, that would be a crowning achievement, and underline just how far he's come in the game.
Love his backstory is quite incredible as well. Like his mum passed away from cancer when he was just 8 years of age, and his dad Ned, working a second job at Boston Scientific to kind of pay for himself and his older twin brother's sporting endeavours. And clearly, like, even there's sliding doors moments when you read, like, he went to East Tennessee State University on a scholarship. I think he had offers, of course, from Irish universities as well, but his Rory McIlroy, I think, was offered that East Tennessee State scholarship and had said yes, essentially, in all but in writing, essentially, but had to pull out, and then Power takes the slot, yeah. And just like, even there's stories from one of his coaches, I think, where he, like, Power's ambidextrous, so he can hit the ball 300 yards with his right and left hand, which is just, if you've ever played golf to any level,
not fair, like,
Shane Walsh.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. There was even a story from his former coach where he talked about one time at that driving range when he first came over to Tennessee, like, Power asked him to lob the ball to him, and one-handed whacks the ball right-handed like down the fairway 150, 200 yards, and then does the exact same thing one-handed in the air volley, left-handed. Like that's.
So if you're to take like shots with alternate hands, he'd be the best in the world probably.
Well, like you play golf, Cal, so like that must be very useful to be able to, because you see sometimes you say there's a tree blocking you if you're a right-hander, but then if you can turn around and hit it left-handed, then I assume
I'm speculating here now, I think.
Yeah, but you see the clubs he'd have will be right-handed.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Unless he's thought ahead and thought, right, I might bring a 9-iron left-handed with me.
That'd be a bad way to think, though, that you're going to need it.
Yeah, true. Sorry, you can't do that.
But yeah, you're right, though, that does happen, but they'd have to turn the club.
That's a fair point.
The other way around.
Yeah.
Thinking of,
but I did see him with a left-handed club on the practice ground.
Right.
And it looks like he's a left-handed player.
Thinking of Elizabeth Cotton now, who she was a guitarist over 100 years ago in the States, but she learned from her brother's guitar, and she was left-handed, so she just turned the guitar upside down, and that's how she played. So maybe that's how.
That's like Ronnie O'Sullivan in the snooker.
Yeah, exactly. Just extremely talented.
Was it against Alain Robidoux, where Robidoux's like, "Why are you taking with your left hand?" And he's like, "Well, I'm still better with my left hand than you are with your right."
Yeah,
and
didn't shake his hand.
He couldn't come back from that.
Yeah, absolutely, just ripped him apart. So Seamus Power, Ronnie O'Sullivan on a par in terms of sporting dominance. What else is happening this morning, Cal?
Well, you mentioned the Champions League. Just to recap those fixtures tonight, Spurs need a draw to advance to the last 16. They take on Marseille in the south of France from 8. Liverpool against Napoli also at the same time. Both of those teams through from Group A. Paul Pogba set to miss the World Cup for France. He needs further time to recover from a knee problem. He's undergone surgery, yet to play for Juventus this season. The South African team, for their meeting with Ireland on Saturday, expected to be named today the first of the Autumn Nations Series matches. Ireland A take on an All Black selection this week as well at the RDS on Friday evening. Jockey Mark Zara said he felt like crying after winning the iconic Melbourne Cup overnight. He was on board Gold Trip. The 6-year-old stallion was at odds of 18-1 and took victory there. But the event at the Flemington Racecourse was threatened earlier in the day after a black oily substance was poured onto the track, and police are investigating that incident. Kevin Manning has called time in his career as a jockey. We mentioned that there in the papers. He announced his decision after guiding vocal studies to victory at Galway. Ataya Titikul is the new women's golf world number 1. The Thai becomes the 16th different player to reach the top of the rankings. She's just 19 years of age. And England currently in action at the T20 Cricket World Cup, and we'll get you a latest score on their match, because this is a must-win game for England against New Zealand. England currently 100 for the loss of 1 wicket after 12 overs. They won the toss and elected to bat first, and of course England lost to Ireland earlier in the campaign, and Ireland suffered a 42-run defeat to Australia yesterday.
Cal Maloney, great stuff as always. Thanks, William.
Lads.
That's Cal Maloney there with all your sports headlines as per usual on OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Here's what we've got on OTB Sports Radio for you today. 1 o'clock, OTB Gold, Ronnie Delaney, of course, remembering that gold medal in the 1956 Melbourne Olympic Games, no doubt. 3 o'clock, we've got Dadcast. At 4 p.m, it's a career retrospective with the former Irish international striker and Premier League star Stephen Elliott. 6 p.m, OTB Gold, Jerry Eisenberg. Fantastic conversation on Muhammad Ali. You can, of course, follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the very best in the latest sports content. Up next, Alan Quinlan will be on the line as the countdown begins to Ireland's opening Autumn Nation Series game against South Africa. That's this Saturday at the Aviva Stadium. First though, here's Kerry's Gavin White. He joined me in studio here on Saturday explaining how he found out he had been nominated for this year's All-Stars. Back after these. How do you find out you've received an All-Star? So we know when the nominations come out and everyone's kind of waiting to see what the team will be. I know this year the football was announced the day before or whatever, but like, do you find out in the media like everyone else, or do you get a call from someone? Like, what's the process behind finding out?
Yeah, it's strange enough. Yeah, I woke up and kind of forgot about it, really. There's text message coming through the phone from loved ones, congratulations, whatever.
Really?
So, yeah, there's no real official phone call or anything, which is strange. But no, it is cool. It's cool to wake up to something like that. I don't think it changes at all. It's very cool, in fairness.
That's the thing, when you find out from your family as opposed to an official source, you have to probably have to check it yourself just to make sure. You're like, I trust you, but I don't know if I really trust you. Like, I'm going to have to look this up. So it's one of those things you probably have to double check yourself just to make sure.
Yeah, exactly. I did that. I think it was after my auntie, I got a text. It was 7 o'clock in the morning or something like that, and there was like, she said, I was kind of half asleep at the time, so I had to double check. But it was unusual, but it's cool all the same.
Not a bad thing to wake up to. Like, is still the All-Star trip is the All-Star trip still happening, I wonder, or is it?
I don't know.
No,
Not sure,
you haven't heard yet. No official word.
No.
Like yourselves, since the All-Ireland final, Gavin, I know you had a bit of time away with loved ones, but you'll have a holiday, I assume, now in December to look forward to, or around later in the year?
Yeah, we're going away in the start of December, so we're looking forward to that. No, it'll be a good trip in fairness. We've the medals as well, I suppose, the end of November, so there's a nice run in there into Christmas, so we look forward to it and get back on the road then in January.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports Rugby.
Hit Connacht last season, going to hit them again this season. They are in the tougher section. Munster could conceivably finish 8th, but miss out on Champions Cup. I think it is progressively getting more and more difficult to qualify for Champions Cup. You certainly can't take it as read, and you certainly can't take it as read when you make a start like Munster.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
2 minutes to 9 on this Tuesday morning on OTB AM, and delighted to say Alan Quinlan is on the line with myself and Johnny. Morning, Quinny.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Keeping well. We might, before we get to looking ahead to the first game of the Autumn International Series this Saturday against the South Africans, we might put an underlining mark on the URC action at the weekend. And Munster, we referenced them earlier, myself and Johnny, but look, a 1-point defeat. I guess you have to consider the fact that there was up to 20 players out injured for Munster. So the Ulster game, although it's a loss, comes with an asterisk maybe in some regards.
Yeah, it is. It does. I think obviously, I said last week it was a must-win for Munster. That was pretty self-explanatory. They've now lost 5 out of 7 games, which is a terrible start. And I think, look, there's positives probably against Ulster, the Leinster game. Obviously, the Bulls game was a really good win for them, but the other performances were really poor. Dragons, Connacht, in particular. Even the second half against Zebra. So they've started really slow, and they've put themselves in a really tough position. I think the players away, you've mentioned it. I think they've struggled to cope without them, and they've just had a lot of bad luck. Even after the Leinster game, John Klein, Thomas Ahern, two of their starting second rows that day, both gone. So they were kind of down to the bare bones, really, and they're coming up against an Ulster side who are in a good position, full of confidence. I suppose they had illness in South Africa the week before, which would have not helped their situation. But I mean, from a playing point of view, they've been playing very well this year. They had a brilliant win the week before in South Africa. And, they got there in the end. I think Ulster were pretty dominant in the first half. The 2 maul tries, I think, and the other James Hume one came off a maul as well when they got close to the line. So, a lot of problems for Munster at the moment, but there is some positives as regards the young players getting exposed, the way they're playing, the way they're trying to play. I think they're second in the most offloads in the URC, which is I think for Graham Rowntree, that isn't something that will please him and say, God, we're it's a table. They're 14th in the league table, and that's where they sit at the moment. And between one thing and another, I think they've had their issues around, adapting the new coaches, getting up to speed, but they've been very hampered by the emerging Ireland international call-ups and a number of injuries, and it's been a dreadful start for them, really.
I was asking about the crowd last week, Quinny. I thought it was striking how much they were behind them in the second half. And is it a sense that you mentioned the offloads and they're playing some nice rugby as well? So is it a case of like they know that they're trying to buy into a transition here?
Yeah, well, in very simple terms, Johnny, the Munster of old would be slowing the game down, trying to box kick the ball. People realise where they're at. If all the players, like I mentioned, Klein and Thomas Ahern, if both those second rows are available, I'm not saying Ulster won't score from them all with the 2 tries they did, but they're in a much stronger position of stopping it. So look, I think the crowd realise that there's going to be a bit of pain here, and I think they can stay with him. And I've always said this: if there's a bit of fight. And maybe it's a bit condescending and a bit, it's obviously disappointing that that's where we're at now. And I spoke about maybe the problems in previous years and the previous regime and where this has all come to. But look, all the kind of dirty laundry is out now, and I think they need to get better in the fitness department, the medical department, lots of areas, the way they train, the type of profile of players that they're bringing through, and advance that all those things in a better place. And Munster are a big brand, but they're not winning matches and they're not winning trophies. So I think the supporters were very, very vocal and got behind them at the weekend, and they will do. I think rugby people understand that in Munster, that it's a reality now. Munster are well off the pace, but the positives are the way they're trying to play and the younger players that are coming through. So I think that's what people want. They want to see that fight, and it is a period now that you can either get behind the team or not. It's hard to be critical of what Munster did the other night. I know you can go through the game and you can see mistakes and knock-ons and certain things, but I think there is positive signs into what they're trying to do. And even for the try they scored in the second half, Shea Daly's try, I think a real positive moment. Jack Crowley gets the conversion. They're ahead incredibly, but Ulster would have had penalties down at the other end to win the game. But I think to fight back from the position they were in was positive. And they're in a tough position, and I think the worry now, and everybody's saying it to me, is European rugby next year. They may be in the Challenge Cup.
Just for anyone who slept or partied, I guess, through the weekend, the results involving Irish provinces. Friday night, Scarlets 5, Leinster 35. The game we're speaking about, Munster 14, Ulster 15 on Saturday, and then Ospreys 19, Connacht 22 was also a result from Saturday. Like you mentioned, the second row issues there, Quinny. Like when you look at the lineup at the weekend, it's probably the 7th and 8th choices for second row. You mentioned John Klein, you mentioned Thomas Ahern, you also have Tyke Byrne, Sneeman, Finian Wycherley, Paddy Kelly unavailable. And when you look then at the dominance Ulster had at the line out, perhaps it's no surprise.
No, it's not, and that's why I think people, there was kind of a worry and a fear, and it was the same going into the Leinster game. I think somebody said to me recently, when the day Munster kind of get a bit of luck with getting everybody out in the field, I think that will be exciting to see if they can get a few games with their full strength side, their internationals back. Maybe we'll see it after November, and we will see it hopefully. Obviously you'll see more players back for the European run in December, but with the injuries, I think, look at Snyman, what's happened, you're probably not going to see him till post-Christmas now, but it is what it is. They just have to get on with it, and that's it. It's sometimes when you're kind of down, the last thing you need is another injury, and that's what's happened to them. But it's you're kind of shaking out who's available to you and who's coming through. And I think the big positive in the second row, an academy graduate, he's still in the academy. He's only 19, Edwin Adogbo. It's phenomenal, the experience he's getting. And Saturday night again, he showed how good he can be and where he can go. Evan O'Connell was on the bench, Paul O'Connell's nephew. He didn't get on, but he's only 18. Ruan Quinn came on against Leinster, made his debut against a few weeks previously. He's only 19 now. So a lot of really good players coming through, but I think there's certain areas they need more. They need some centres, they need front row cover. Look, there's some positives, and I think if they get everyone back. But the season is kind of running away from, when you 5 losses in the first 7, it's very difficult. Look at Connacht's situation. They've turned it right around. I think their performance at the weekend against the Ospreys, a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, I think inaccuracies, but that cohesion and that kind of togetherness that you want to win away games is starting to come. I think they had a brilliant performance against the Scarlets. They blew them away the week before in Galway. And then to go to the Ospreys and get the win. A win they should be getting. The Ospreys are missing their Welsh players. Connacht are not as badly hit for obvious reasons. They don't have as many guys gone. A little bit of cohesion there, but they've strung together a few results, and the picture is totally different than it was with them losing their first 3 games. So Munster have to find a little run like that somewhere along the way, but it's just going to get harder and harder. And They can hope to get players back, but Connacht are in a better position now, and that'll be on the 26th of November. It's a good few weeks away. We've got the internationals first, but Connacht and Munster will be a humdinger down in Thomond Park.
Ulster deserve credit as well, don't they? Like that TMO in the first half would have possibly put them out of sight, and it was kind of a small handling error from the scrum after that. But like the context of they didn't have a great prep at all going into this match in terms of the players that were out, and as you mentioned, and still managed to find a way.
Yeah, and they have a number of players with Ireland as well, so it isn't just Munster who were affected. I think it's the injuries on top of the internationals away. That's the problem for Munster. Ulster have injuries as well, and guys away with Ireland. But you know yourself, Johnny, in sport, confidence that it'll, you often think that bounce of the ball, that bit of luck, we call it, you kind of create that, and it comes with a togetherness and a feel-good factor, work rate, all that kind of stuff. And Ulster, have played a lot of good, brilliant rugby this year. They're very, very dangerous, I think. A lot of kind of seasoned players that they had available to them the weekend. Rory Sutherland coming off the bench. He's a British and Irish line. He's a great signing for them. They picked him up from Worcester. Vermeulen was very powerful. Sam Carter, Alan O'Connor in the second row. Jordy Murphy, a couple of big moments with a try and a turnover as well. Someone who'll try and claw his way back into the international setup. He's had a tough couple of years. So Nathan Doak, obviously the couple of kicks, the conversions, Ulster could have been further ahead. But you sense at the end of the game from Dan McFarlane that, delighted with the results. The first time in 8 years they've won in Thomond Park, but frustrated. And I can understand his frustration with, they didn't play for, and show any sort of ambition in Thomond Park in the second half of that game. And they did the same last year when they lost, when the game Zebo got sent off in last year. So happy to get out of there, but frustrated. But they deserve credit because you have to get wins and pick up wins on the road, and that's a hard thing to do.
You mentioned some of the positive shoots for Munster and Edwin Odogbo being one of them, and maybe he wouldn't have got so much game time under different management. Jack Crowley is another one, Quinny, that I wanted to touch on as well, because I guess before the Emerging Ireland tour, a lot of the talk was on Kieran Frawley, picks up the injury, and then Crowley takes the opportunity on the Emerging Ireland tour with both hands. And Graham Rowntree spoke about him very warmly after the match, talking about him as a leader. He said, look at Jack Crowley, at the end of the game he's still navigating us around the field. You'd nearly forget, looking at him, Quinny, that he's only 22, but there are leadership qualities there with him for sure.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think that's another big positive for Munster in a situation where it's hard to kind of find those positives and really focus on them. But he's a positive for Irish rugby. I think there's obviously been so much talk for years about who's going to be the successor, who's going to close that gap in Johnny Sexton and Joey Carberry, and Kieran Frawley now and Jack Crowley are two that are kind of pushing themselves up the ranks. And Crowley has a big future ahead of him. I think he was brilliant for Ireland when he played in the under-20s, and the success he had and the confidence, I think probably stifled a little bit in the last year or two. I think Munster probably focused a bit more on Ben Healy because of his kicking game and the type of game that Johan van Graan was trying to play. But, he's a very athletic player, Jack Crowley, and he's a physical player as well. So, we've got to see more of him. He needs to get more game time, and but it's a very exciting opportunity for him. And I think, he may be involved and probably will be involved in the A game on Friday night against the New Zealand selection. So all that's good stuff for him. And when he's involved in an Irish squad, he's up there this week training with them, seeing how Sexton does it, how the other players do it, how Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringwald, these guys, go about their training week. So he'll be learning all the time from that.
You mentioned Munster's position and looking ahead, I guess they really desperately want to get those URC playoff spots and get to the Champions Cup. 12th at the minute, but having said that, they're only 5 points behind Cardiff, who are 6th. But then I mentioned the run of fixtures coming up earlier in the show, 11 games remaining. Like, they still have to play Leinster again, they have to go to Belfast, double header in South Africa. That's 4 difficult games. The remainder of the games nowhere near as difficult, you'd have to say, but it's going to be touch and go, Quinny, isn't it, whether they can get that the playoff spot?
Yeah, very much so. Like, you lose, I think they lost 7 in total last year, and they barely got into the playoffs. Then they lost that quarter final against Ulster. So, there's very little wriggle room left, and I think you have to. The next game is Connacht, then they've got Edinburgh away, the 2nd of December, and then you've got European games, and then Leinster in Thomond Park. They haven't won against them in the league. The last time was 2018, so it's 4 years ago. But
you imagine the Connacht game be huge in the sense, Quinny, like they're going in against a confident team,
but it's used for Connacht as well, Johnny. Connacht are not going to go down to Thomond Park. They're going to be in it's after the November internationals. I don't think Munster will have the internationals available. Bundy Aki will probably be available because he'll only be back available the previous week. He'll have very little rugby played, so he'll be playing. It'll be very difficult for Munster. It'll be a very strong Connacht side that'll go down there. It just depends who's back. Thomas Ahern is out for a long time now. John Klein, will he be back? We'll have Anton Frisch, Conway, Keith Earls, these guys back. Who knows? But then they've got Leinster Christmas, and then away to Ulster, and then they've got the Lions at home, and then they have a run of a couple of games when they head into the Six Nations where they've home games, and they've games that you think they'll win. But it's the last two. It's the Stormers and the Lions, Stormers and the Sharks away, I think, in South Africa. The last two games, I think they've got to try and get right up that table before they head to South Africa. And then you're saying, well, if we pick up one of those games in those 2 weeks, have all our internationals available, maybe an opportunity to one of those games to get you into a playoff spot. But look, it's a long way away. I think if they've got to focus on the here and now, and it's probably too far away looking at that. But I think the games they'll look back on, and I said this from the start, they could have won that game in Cardiff at the start. Probably Cardiff deserved that win, but it was there for the taking. They made a lot of mistakes. The Dragons, the Connacht game, they're ones they look back at with real frustration. Not necessarily, with being disrespectful to those teams, but the way they played in those games was really disappointing. And just look at Leinster on Friday night with all their players away. Scarlets have been dreadful, to be fair, this season, but very much a second string Leinster team go over there and they win 35-5. That's the standard, and that's where the other Irish provinces are trying to get to close that gap with Leinster, but they're incredibly dominant at the moment, and looks like they're unearthing. Chris Crosgrove playing fullback on Friday night was really good and got a brilliant try as well.
There is a great element to that because we were just saying before the show, like the fact that you necessarily have to play these second string teams on the night, obviously it's an issue, but it's great going forward for the development of these players as well. Like
it is, yeah. And look, some of the Leinster players will argue we're not second string. Max Deegan, Scott Penny, Reece Ruddock, but they are on paper because Van der Fleer, Conan and Doris are your first choice back row, but they're really, really good backup players. Ruddock is an international. Deegan has played for Ireland. Then you've got Jason Jenkins, Ross Maloney. So the front row is obviously different with Thomas Clark and McKee and Ed Byrne, but that's a very strong forward pack, Johnny, going over to Scarlets, who have been, really, really poor and porous this year. But you look at the back line, Liam Turner, Rob Russell and Chris Cosgrove, those three, they're new players essentially, even though, Rob Russell played a fair bit last season, got plenty of games. But it's the development and it's the experience and it's the confidence to be able to go to it. And it's just a seamless transition when those players come through. They're so well coached. And I think they have been for a long, long time now. And that's the benefit of Stuart Lancaster and what he's done and the other coaches in Leinster. There's a template there that players just seamlessly transition into, and their skill execution is really, really impressive. And I think, look, what they're able to do when all their internationals is away is what makes them so strong, and they've so much depth in that squad.
Rhys Ruddock and Ross Byrne came in for praise from Leo Cullen after that match, and rightly so. And as you said, loads of young talent coming off the bench for Leinster, which doesn't bode well for the other provinces as they try to keep up with what Leinster are doing. Just before we move to Ireland, Quinny, just to touch again on Connacht and that 22-19 win over the Ospreys. So that leaves them 2 points off the top 8. Just looking at the standings, they came away with the 4 match points, and considering they were 12-0 down, a very good result just after 10 minutes as well. So the tries from Alex Wootton, Quinlan Blade and John Porch, and then 7 points off the boot from Jack Carty as well. Interesting that Andy Friend after the match, not full of praise whatsoever, Quinny. Like he was saying, we lacked the clinical bits that we wanted. There was a lot of fight, but certainly wasn't putting any polish on the performance, and probably leaves something left there for the Connacht players to think about.
Yeah, I think Dave's he wasn't. I think Andy Friend is very, very honest in his appraisal without being insulting to his players. And they left a lot of opportunities there. I think they were in the 22 6 times in the first 25 minutes and they came away with nothing, or 20 minutes, I think. They obviously had a poor start, conceding the 2 tries, being 12-0 down away from home. But they were controlled and they kind of changed gears, and their aggression and work rate and attitude is very, very good. But I think it's just been their execution, I think. And they had Ulster opportunities against Leinster, a couple of weeks ago in dreadful conditions in Galway. And they had a lot of entries into the Leinster 22, and it's very difficult to break Leinster down. They're a very strong defensive side as well. But they just come up with mistakes and errors, and maybe it's a little bit of panic at times and lacking a little bit of power sometimes. But I just think against the Ospreys the other day, they should have actually, even though it's a great win on the road, they should have actually got a bonus point win. They made it difficult for themselves with the start, and then at the end they're kind of hanging on a little bit. There's only 3 points in it, but still getting the results and sometimes not playing well. I think they'll only get better. And but in a similar situation for them, I think they're going to be busting a gut to try and get into the playoff position and get into Europe this year as well. But it's early season, but they've kind of turned things around a little bit. Still got a lot of hard games to go, obviously, and the league is so much more competitive this year. There's no easy games. Even when the internationals and the way that the league is positioned now, you don't have games this weekend, obviously, when the internationals are on. So you have opportunities to try and get strong teams out. And I think with the South Africans in it as well, they've obviously made it way more competitive and a better spectacle for everyone.
How would you call Munster Connacht then?
It just depends who's available, Johnny, for Connacht. I think Munster, I think it'll be difficult, really difficult, because, like I said, you'll have a Bundy Aki coming back. You'll have a Connacht team that, they've Finlay Beelum away at the moment, Dave Heffernan with the Irish side, Cian Prendergast. Will they start? Will they be playing against Australia the week before? It's unlikely. So they'll probably go straight into the team. So it could very well be a full-strength Connacht side as opposed to a Munster side who will be down probably, possibly O'Mahony and Ty Byrne and Joey Carberry, Conor Murray. You just don't know what kind of teams they'll have. But I think Connacht will be in a better position going into that game and really believe they can go and win there. And obviously, I don't think things are going to get much better on the second row front in the next few weeks for Munster. So you'd have to say, if you were choosing someone to win that game now, you'd probably be saying Connacht are in a better position.
Quinny, all roads lead to Lansdowne Road this Saturday, 5:30, Ireland against South Africa. So the number 1 ranked team in the world against the world champions. I know the South Africans landed in Dublin and they are on Irish soil now. They had a 5-hour delay on their flight from Dubai to Dublin. Of course, there's European-based players as well that made their own way, and I think Cheslin Colby was the last to arrive after playing the top 14. So much riding on this. Is there an element of, I guess, shadowboxing, given that we're in the same World Cup group, or is that just so far away that that's not even in the ether just yet?
I don't. Yeah, it's a tough one. That's a really good question. Like, does it really make a difference who wins this game? And does it give you that edge going into the pool stages of the World Cup next year? Well, I think possibly. I think you'd still prefer to win the game and have that little that better position. But in 2017, we beat the Springboks 38-3 in Dublin, and everybody, was lambasting them, and rightly so on the day, I think. And obviously things changed very quickly then for them. Rassie Erasmus, Jack Nienaber left Munster, went back to South Africa and turned things around, and they went and won a World Cup less than 2 years after. So maybe it's a plan again to come and play Ireland here before the World Cup next year. We'll beat them by 30 points again, and they'll go and win the World Cup next year again. I don't know, but look, I don't think that'll be part of Rassie Erasmus, Jack Nienaber's remit to lose to Ireland. They'll want to win here. I think they'll want to go into the World Cup and continue the strength and power that they've shown and the performances that they've shown us in the last couple of years since they won that World Cup. I think they're incredibly powerful. They do the basics so well, and they have some star X factor players who can just come up with pieces of brilliance and win them games. They're pragmatic in their approach, but that works for them. And there's so much physical power. So it's going to be a real test for Ireland, a real physical test. And obviously, the last time Ireland played was in Wellington in July, and off that historic series win. So it'll be interesting to see how Ireland do, and they'll want to get momentum again and build momentum. I think there's a lot said about what happened in 2018, being number one side in the world. After the November series in 2018, getting so many plaudits, Team of the Year, Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all that kind of stuff, and it unravelled then when it went into the Six Nations in February 2019, when England were the first side to kind of break down that Ireland team and find chinks in their armour. I think we want to see, and Andy Farrell has said this about developing players and really kind of develop not just the 23 players, but kind of the development after that. We mentioned Crowley there and Kieran Frawley. Certain other areas you don't want to lose players. I think you want to get more depth and have them all on the same page. So it's a very tough task for Ireland on Saturday, but it's an intriguing one. And you just don't know with South Africa sometimes, and they've shown it a little bit this year. One of their performances in the Rugby Championship was really poor in Australia, and obviously New Zealand beat them as well in Johannesburg as well. But when they're on song, they're incredibly physical and powerful and hard to stop. So it's a great game to look forward to. I'm really intrigued to see how Ireland do, and can they cope with that physical power, and can they match it? We'll wait and see.
And of course, the Box will name their match day 23 today, as usual. They name it nice and early in the week. If you're Rassie Erasmus or Jacques Nienaber, Quinny, and hopefully neither are watching this, but what areas of the Irish team are you targeting this Saturday?
I'm not sure they target individuals, but I think that physically and collectively they'll believe that their forward pack can get dominance. So, it's the players they can bring off the bench, and that real power element to their game is hard to stop for anybody, and they can overpower you. So I think their maul is an area where they'll feel that, but they feel this against anyone, that they can attack them and they can go after them. They did that in the summer against Wales. They mauled very effectively against them, and so I think they'll go after Ireland's defensive maul and they'll try and take them on there. That's not going to be a surprise or a shock to Paul O'Connell or to John Fogarty in the forwards coaches for Ireland. Dare I say it, they'll try and be physical with Johnny Sexton. I think if you're playing against Ireland, you get after Sexton and try and put pressure on him. Not give him time on the ball, because he makes things happen for Ireland and for Leinster when he plays. So I think Ireland are a very balanced side at the moment. And when they analyse what Ireland did in New Zealand, like, you know, the results, it's a results-driven business really at international rugby, I think. But the performances of Ireland that tour, at times when they had the ball, the attack, the cohesion, the balance of where they were able to control things was incredibly impressive. And, you know, this is a great test for them because they're going to get a very aggressive side who are a very physical side, and you know, as part of development and trying getting right for a World Cup next year, it'll be good for them. But
it is good in that sense that, like, if you say, some people will say that the stuff against New Zealand like might have been a shade flattering, or you don't read too much into it. This tells us like a lot more, I guess.
It does, yeah, and their collisions and their physicality it's very obvious what's going to happen. But I think it's very unfair to kind of label South Africa just a direct team who kick the ball and who overpower you and win the collisions and they kick penalties and stuff. They have some brilliant talent as well. Lucanu Am is, I don't think he's not involved, but he's a wonderful centre. Delaney, he's incredibly skillful. You know, Colby is back in the mix as well, and they've incredible options out in the back line as well. So when they want to attack and they score brilliant tries, they're very good at it as well. But they play to their strengths a lot, and that's going to be a real test for Ireland. But Ireland are a possession-based side, Johnny, and they hold on to the ball really well. And
it's what
they've
you
got
want.
to get that. Yeah, they've got to get that source of possession line out in scrum as well. So, you know, it's a good test, exactly what you want. November 2017 will tell us don't read too much into it, because, you know, it doesn't really matter. What will really matter next year is what happens in that pool stage of the World Cup. But these are really important games for them as well, for both sides.
Look at scrum-half, Quinny. Like, it's a bit of a problem area heading into this November series. You got Jamison Gibson-Park, but he's not played for Ireland this season. He's been the first choice, of course, over the last year and a half or so. Craig Casey has probably edged it in terms of form ahead of Conor Murray, and Casey's had his own injury problems of late. Like, are we looking at a case of Gibson Park? Of course, if he's available, he plays. But then is Conor Murray? I mean, is he third string, or is he a squad player? Is he there as a cheerleader and as someone for experience, or what's his place in the team now, do you think?
I think he still has a huge amount to offer. The way Ireland want to play and the way their attack has improved in the last couple of years, Gibson Park has helped that, because he's very you know, quick in what he does. I think he still comes up with an error or two here and there, but he's been brilliant for Ireland. Craig Casey's development has accelerated and he's improved a lot, and that's been in around the squad, being confident in himself, and his ability is very impressive. He does come up maybe some of that decision making at times. He comes up with an error or two himself. I think Conor Murray at this stage still offers a lot. I think he offers you that solidity, that physical presence, really good kicking game as well when needed. And obviously his delivery, there's nothing wrong with Conor Murray's pass. I just think sometimes it's the speed of getting it away from the base to the breakdown, that half a second. And that's something he can really focus on that. And I'm sure the Irish coaches will have worked on that with him. But I think he still has a lot to offer. Conor Murray is a fantastic player. He has been for a very long time. And it's a case of whether you pick, if Gibson Park starts, do you put Craig Casey on the bench to kind of give you that zip and energy and real kind of enthusiasm? Or do you bring Conor Murray on to see out the game and be like an extra wing forward who makes those tackles, who gets turnovers from breakdown turnovers? I just want to see an edge on Conor Murray, and I think he's an incredible character. He's an incredible leader, and you'd love to see a little bit of a narky edge to him in the next couple of weeks, that he wants to play and that he shows it, and that I'm sure he does. But I'd love to see a big performance or two out of him as well, to really kind of push it back on Craig Casey, who's been chomping at the bit a little bit for him. But it just depends on what the coaches are seeing in training as well. I think some people can jump and say, well, I hate writing players off and ending their careers and saying, you know, well done, thanks for the memories. We saw a dip in Sexton a couple of years ago. and we've seen an incredible resurgence. I think there's a bit of a resurgence in Conor Murray, who's probably suffered from playing in a, that pragmatic approach with Munster in the last couple of years as well.
Quinny, great stuff as always this morning. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Alan Quinlan there, of course, as he is usually with us. Just before we wrap, Johnny, we don't have much time on this at all, but news in the papers of Vinnie Perth being linked to the... I know you were at the Galway game at the weekend against Longford in the playoffs, but Vinnie Perth being linked with the position. So Gary Cronin has left the position, personal circumstances being quoted, finished 4th in the league, lost to Galway in the playoffs at the weekend, as I said. Ian Morris and Keith Long, other names being linked, but what's your take on this as a potential next move for Vinnie Perth to Longford?
I could see this happen actually, because Vinnie's been out of the game obviously since he left the Dundalk job. His CV is very good, but there aren't that many jobs available, and I don't know. I don't know, is Vinny in the running for the Bowes job or not? But they went with Declan Devine, which I was surprised at. But there really aren't that many jobs available. He's a great connection with Longford Town. I think that's very important, and it would be a good fit for a club that is probably facing a somewhat uncertain future in terms of funding and in terms of making the club viable, because Longford's a very, very small town. It's hard to get much support out. It's hard to fund a club like that. They have the benefit of having relatively short access to Dublin players, so the Dublin players come over. Gary Cronin, I don't know what he's citing as personal reasons. I think my understanding from Gary was that he wants to go full-time management. He's very well regarded in the game. Longford played lovely football, but it's tough, and it's tough having a job and trying to manage the books. But I could definitely see Vinny getting that job, and I think it would be an intriguing aspect to the League of Ireland were he to go back there.
Johnny, great stuff as always. Thanks a million.
I've gotten a lot of slagging about conflating the Wren Day and St Bridget's Day, but it's the 1st of November and it's been a long weekend.
It's early, it's dark, it's all the rest.
It's
bank holiday Tuesday.
It is.
We'll leave you off, don't worry.
Yeah.
Thanks a million, Johnny. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless Shave, Magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. We're going to have the Krabby quiz for you in just a second, which you can watch the highlights of from Friday. A surprise winner. Stay tuned to see who that is. OTB AM back tomorrow, Wednesday morning, with myself and Johnny again. Shelbourne's Alex Kavanagh will join us following their successful title defence in the Women's National League. We'll of course have reaction to tonight's Champions League games. Liverpool taking on Napoli, and a big one for Spurs against Marseille. So we'll react both of those in action, plus plenty more besides. Enjoy, and we'll chat to you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless Shave, Magnificent Mo.